I'm one of the only ones that has actually lived every facet of our sport, every stage of our sport. From I couldn't even qualify at one time. I couldn't make the top 20 at a pro national, not even close. Then I'm a top 20 guy. Then I'm a top 15. Then I'm top 10. Then I'm a top 5 guy. And then at one point I've battled for championships. In 2016, it was either I was going to be done or I was going to carve out somewhat my own path.
Underway, SX1, final number 1. Yeah, but it looks like Brayton's going to check out with this thing if he keeps going like this.
But it's just what our industry has taught us, right? Like you have to be in that revolving circle of you got to race Supercross and you got to race motocross. That was really the only jobs available.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to do it. Hey, what do you miss the most? I miss the boys. Like I miss the locker room. Things you don't miss the races that you win or have won, or you don't really miss those days. You just miss the camaraderie. Like I know the one thing that I'm gonna miss the most is the test track days. Like just hanging out with the boys and you're doing motos together, and it's just so fun. I remember sitting in the Best Buy parking lot in North Carolina on the phone with my agent at the time, just crying, saying, "Get me out of here! Like I've got to get back to KTM or something." Like Anaheim's in like a month, and I literally haven't even rode the motorcycle. Yeah, even though it was tough, man, I've learned so much, and I've gotten to live it and be happy. And I don't know many people can say that they can truly race for as long as I've done, and actually enjoy these last 4 years they've been so fun.
Yeah.
They really have. I think it's cool when you really look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is what it's going to take and I'm willing to do it. And then you just get in the midst of it and then you're doing it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm starting to be successful. Like I just want to race. Or I just did this. Or now I am going for my 4th Australian championship. Like that's crazy. It all just seemed like it's happened. But you know, it took decisions. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of perseverance through injuries and sickness, and it wasn't easy, that's for sure, but on the back end of it, it's always so worth it.
All right, Justin Brayton, we're finally doing it, bro.
Yeah, here we are.
Pretty excited.
Thanks for having me.
Nah, I'm super keen. I was thinking about it last night that there were so many times that we would have walked past each other in the pits, track walk. You would have been talking to Nate, and we just never really knew each other that well while we're in the States, or while I was in the States. And it's like, if I wouldn't had a crystal ball then to like think that we'd be sitting here having coffee in Burley, talking in the studio, it would definitely would have surprised me, that's for sure. Yeah,
when we first started chatting a couple weeks ago, I guess, it's funny you mentioned names like Nathan Ramsey, and then we just talk about Nate Dogg for 20 minutes and then mention Nevin, and I'm like, no way, I was good friends with him too. And it's like one of them things where you're right, we've probably passed each other 100 times, and now we meet and hang out, and just so many things in common, and our sport is so small, but yet again it's like we never hung out, you know. I never really seen you, you never really we never caught up while you're in the States, but cool to be here and catching up now.
Well, it's cool. Like I think that back then was different, like I was there from I guess like 2010 to 16, 17 sort of thing, and it's like I feel like in the last few years, and we sort of talked about a little bit last night, you've like found your identity. Like you sort of, not that you would like blend in, but it's like now you have like such a presence in the sport compared to back then, which is super cool for a guy that, you know, you were saying last night, like you were almost done. So it's like to go from almost being done to now like really carving out your own niche in the sport is super cool, dude. Yeah. And I did kind of blend in, honestly. I was a 3rd to 6th place guy almost every week. You know, I rode for several great teams in that era from 2010 was my first year in the 450 class for the JGR team.
Rode for them for 4 years, rode for Factory Honda for a year. But I was never the championship guy or the guy that really stood out. So I did kind of blend in. And then you're right, in 2016, it was either I was going to be done or I was going to carve out somewhat my own path of, like, I love riding motorcycles. I love the sport. I love Supercross. I love motocross. It's what I've loved my whole life. Since I was 3 years old, I couldn't stop watching Supercross on TV. Like, my parents would record it on the VCR, and it was Matasevich and Bradshaw and guys like that. And then obviously McGrath and Carmichael. And I just absolutely love it. But what I didn't love was really the mental grind from every weekend having to perform. And even though I wasn't the guy winning every weekend, there's still a lot of pressure to perform, to be a fourth place guy or fifth place guy and get a ride for the next year.
Yeah, it's just to keep your job kind of thing.
Just to keep your job, yeah. And thankfully I was good enough to where every year I didn't have to stress that much, but I was like, the pay scale is different, right? If I'm an 8th place guy compared to a fourth or potentially winning, or if I could get that win, then you're paid off the potential to win again. And
yeah.
So there's so many different ways to look at it, and so many different things that I wanted to achieve, that it's stressful. It's so mentally stressful, and I'm pretty hard on myself anyways. Put a lot of pressure on myself, and I know my capabilities, so I always wanted to put in the most to achieve those goals. And so yeah, in 2016 during motocross, I had enough. And I was telling you this story last night, but I believe it was 2014 Unadilla. I had a pretty good day. I was top 5, and I left there, and I called my wife at the time, and or obviously still my wife, but we had just gotten married in 2013, and I called her, and I was crying. I was driving back to the hotel by myself. I had a fairly good day. I believe I went 5.4, 4.5, something like that. And I was so fed up with it. I was just like, I'm just in this revolving, like, just mess of I'm not happy. I didn't like motocross that much, to be completely honest. I struggled with, and I enjoyed the suffering part, like the training of motocross, because you can't hide on a motocross track 25 minutes in when it's 100 degrees outside. You can't hide. It's either you're in shape or you're not, and I love that part of it. But what I didn't love was we start riding Supercross in September.
Yeah.
Start testing Supercross in September. Then we do a few off-season races, and then we're at Anaheim in January. And then I put all my eggs into Supercross. Always have. I love Supercross. It's what I'm best at. It's what I enjoy the most. So I would put all my eggs in that basket. And then come May, I'm like totally worked mentally, physically, everything. Oh, and then guess what? You get a weekend off. Well, you don't really get a weekend off because you're testing and training, and you're doing your 30-minute motos, and you're trying to squeeze in all this stuff into such a small time frame. And then you got to go line up at Hangtown, which it's like, I've never enjoyed that track. I don't know what it is about that place. I think it's probably just everything combined with the stress and travel and everything. And then all of a sudden you got to go line up, and then it's all summer of just completely grinding. So,
and even like not just the racing, like I've said it before, like just the traveling, just being knowing, like, I used to dread Thursdays, that you'd have to get up super early. You got to pack all your shit. You got to get in the car. You got to deal with traffic. You got to fly. You got to deal with cancel flight. Like it's the whole production, like everything that takes place to go into those outdoors. And they're not in great place. It's not MetLife Stadium. No, exactly. You're getting there, then you got to drive. It's a huge ordeal.
And then we got to sometimes find a gym if the hotel doesn't have a gym, because you got to do a spin or a run or something like that. And then you got to go drive an hour to an autograph signing. Then you got to find some place to eat dinner. And then you got to wake up at 5 a.m. to get to the track by 6:30 or so, or do your morning warm up. And then it's a long day at the race. Like, it's really, really tough. And what people see on TV is just the part of it that I wish I could only do, right? I wish you could just show up and race your motorcycle, and it would be awesome. But it's everything from in between, which is why it's the hardest thing to manage, I guess, and it's what I wish the fans in our sport and the media is doing a better job, especially with social media and everything. Now you can actually see what goes on.
Well, now you can say what goes on.
Yeah, exactly.
In your own words too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a cool time to show the fans and stuff, and to have them closer into your life. And so yeah, I just decided that year in 2016. So driving home from Unadilla, and then I still did 2 years of motocross, just kind of miserable.
Sucker for punishment.
Yeah, yes, but it's just what our industry has taught us, right? Like, you have to be in that revolving circle of, you got to race Supercross and you got to race motocross. That was really the only jobs available.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to do it.
Yeah. The thing that's crazy is, like, everyone says the same thing. Like, and it's not like this is a 2019 thing where everyone's saying the same thing. It's like, well, I just don't know why it hasn't changed, or like, where do we go from here? Because it's like, so many people say it, and it's not dudes that are being little pussies and complaining. Like, it's the good dudes. Everyone says it. We lose. Like, you're friends with Jimmy Johnson. Like, can you imagine if he retired at 27?
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
What?
Yeah.
No, ever, never, not gonna happen.
Yeah, and nor do people want to. Like, I'm 35 and I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. And I think if people could take a step back, or try and create their own program, like you see RV now coming back in. Like, I don't know if he wanted to be done when he was done, but he was probably just so mentally cooked that he didn't really have a choice. And then I honestly believe Supercross and motocross are like playing football and baseball. Like, it's two totally different sports. It's different bike setups, which now our bike setups are getting closer and closer together, which they shouldn't be. That's a whole different story about the GPs and why the guys in the GPs, I think, are doing better than the Americans in motocross, because it's so specific. Yeah. Our motocross settings now are just basically roll your Supercross bike out of the truck and put some softer springs in the suspension, and you're pretty much good.
Do you reckon that everyone runs shit too stiff in America?
For motocross, yeah.
Yeah, because that just seems to be like the thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just everybody's bike is so stiff.
Yeah, but we go, once again, we have 1 week.
Yeah.
We have 1 week from Supercross that we rode from September to May. And now we've got 1 week to get on much softer suspension and then go to Hangtown. So you always kind of show up to the first round too stiff, because if you go from your really stiff Supercross stuff to your on the softer side motocross, it's almost always like, man, this is way too soft. I need to go stiffer, stiffer. And then as you kind of get into the season, it's like, then you kind of find a happy medium. So yeah, I just think they're two totally different disciplines. And when I made that decision, like, I loved racing, I loved Supercross, but I knew that I had to make a change. And I just I was married, I just had my daughter, and I wanted to create, I've always thought about it and always talked about it to my close friends, that I would love to do some sort of a global Supercross program. There's so many Supercross races around the world. One of my really good friends is Eric Pinard, who does GYPSY in Geneva, and the list goes on. He's the man. Yeah, he's the man. So had long conversations with him, like, hey, what do you think? Would this work? Would it not? And then how the Australia thing came about was 2010. I came over for Yamaha and did the first 3 races. So I was with JGR, but I think someone at Yamaha Australia reached out to someone at Yamaha America, like, hey, can we bring somebody over? They asked me. I said, absolutely, I'm in. So I kind of fell in love with Australia then, doing the first 3 rounds, and just something different. And the whole vibe of this country is just awesome. Like, I love being here. I love everything about it. So then when I left Australia and flew back to North Carolina, where I was living, I met my wife 2 weeks after that. So Australia was really fresh in my head when we met. So we had always talked about it.
So you
want to go to Australia.
You had like the Aussie swag. You're like, I got it because of the swag. I got it because of the Aussie swag.
Yeah, exactly. So it was so fresh in my mind that we talked about it a bunch. And then when those conversations were going on, I'd love to go back to Australia. I'd love to go race that series again. But it seemed like the series was strong then, 2010. Then it seemed like it kind of took a dip. You didn't really hear a lot about it, Supercross anyways. And then it was kind of clawing its way back when I got a message from Yariv Konsky, who runs the Honda team here. And just by chance, we were out at the beach in North Carolina, and I wasn't much of a social media guru at the time. I didn't even know you could send messages on Instagram. So we're sitting on the patio, and
that's because you're super married.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. Yeah. So my wife was talking to me about these messages that you could send or whatever, and I was like, yeah, I've never even seen those. So she gets on, I'm like, hey, where are they? And I had tons of messages, right? And the third one now was Yariv, who had just sent me a message like 3 days prior.
No way.
So I just happened to click on it, and he said something along the lines of, hey, I run the Honda team. Would you ever be interested in coming over? And I was like, no way. This is like an amazing opportunity. This is what we want. Like, maybe I could do this and then maybe do something in America with Honda or whatever. So the first call I made was Dan Bentley, who was the team manager of Factory Honda at the time. And
so what year was this?
This was 2016.
Yeah.
So I had just had a big crash at Washougal. So I took, I guess I was out for a few weeks, and it was kind of like the point of no return. Like, I don't want to ever do motocross again, because all the reasons we listed before.
Yeah.
And there was a pattern of me getting hurt towards the end of motocross, like the previous 3 years. And I don't think it was
what do you reckon
chance.
that was?
I think I was just so mentally tired.
Yeah.
I was so tired that you got to be so focused at the highest end of our sport. To be the highest level of any sport, you've got to be so focused, and I just wasn't. I was going through the motions.
Yeah, because I can imagine that, like, if you haven't got the championship on the line, you're racing around for like sixth in the series,
exactly,
fifth in the series. Like, what's the incentive there to really keep you on the ball, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough. So yeah, I had a big crash there. So there's usually a break after Washougal anyways. There's a 2-week break, and so we had a beach trip planned, and it was the perfect timing for it, because we had just sat down, and every night we'd just sit there and just chat, right? And yeah, we just said, look, we've got to do something different. And so I made that call to American Honda, and they jumped all over it. They're like, absolutely, we'll support you.
Really?
And then the balls just started rolling. And literally a month later, I'm in California on a Honda at the Honda test track. We had, and my mechanic Brent at the time was working for me at KTM. And we sat down, and I said, look, I've got an opportunity to go to Australia, but I have nothing after that. I have no ride, but if you want to have this once in a lifetime experience, we can go to Australia for 3 months. We're going to do I think it was a 6-race series at that time. You get to work on basically a factory Honda, and we'll go to California for 2 weeks and ride the bike, and then we're out. We're flying to Australia for 3 months. And so yeah, he had an offer from several factory teams within the sport, and the more we talked, the more it was like, man, you only get one chance at this. You only get one shot at being young, one shot at traveling. He had always wanted to go to Australia. So that was a huge piece of the puzzle, is to have him on board. Because it's tough to show up in a different country with a new mechanic and different bikes. And then Honda, they wouldn't want just anyone working on their stuff. And so yeah, so he committed. Then next thing you know, we were in Australia. We shipped everything from America, and we were racing over here. It was crazy. It was a crazy couple months of my life, and then still not having anything in America. So when I left America to fly to Australia, I had no ride, no nothing. I knew something would come about, but I knew that I wanted to somehow start this program, and even if I didn't get a ride in America, I was fine with it. I was like, look, I'm going to travel the world, and we'll see what happens.
So in your head, like, even if you didn't get a ride in the US, you thought, like, I'll do the Aussie thing. Hopefully I can win that championship. There'll be some bonuses or whatever that come with that. And then I'll just do races around the world that I want to do, and just sort of chase the prize money and the appearance fees and stuff like that.
Pretty much, yep. And thankfully I had enough saved up to where obviously I couldn't just retire and sit on the couch for the rest of my life, but I was comfortable enough to have a few years or to figure out what's next. And I know that I'm big on you only get one shot, you only get one chance to live this life, and I want to enjoy it. And especially when I had these opportunities like the one here in Australia with Yariv, I wanted to take full advantage of it. And I didn't want to sit there and just kind of sit around and mope around and wait for something to come up in America, because honestly Supercross only rides in America are few and far between. So when the talks were kind of going on with Honda, in one of the conversations with Dan, he said, so what are you doing when you come back to America? I said, I have no idea. I just know that I want to do this in Australia. And he goes, well, we want you on Hondas when you come back. So one thing led to another. They had some support ready to give, like they needed or wanted another team. So we kind of put our heads together and said, all right, there's a list of 4 or 5 teams. Let's make some phone calls and let's see which one would fit me the best and Honda the best. And it ended up being Mike Genova and MotoConcepts. They were the kind of the perfect fit. Obviously came with some baggage and some, I don't even know the right word for it, but there was some drama, I guess, surrounding those teams. So I was a little hesitant. Honda was a little hesitant. But in all the conversations I had with Mike, I had with Genova, they were awesome.
He seems like a really good dude.
He's such a good guy.
I've only ever heard good stuff about him.
He's a great guy. And my parents always taught me, like, don't ever judge somebody by how someone else has judged them, because you never know. So that's how I went into it. And it all came together while I was here in Australia. While I was racing over here, I was on the phone working deals and kind of my own agent and playing that role of between Honda and Genova and then myself. And so they ended up, obviously now we know the story, but they... Was
the big hang up Alessi? Was that like one of the big problems that was
with a few sponsors, but not really. No, not really.
Because he's actually a pretty good dude too.
Tony's
really.
a good guy. Yeah. He's
very misunderstood guy.
He is misunderstood. I think where the most drama, I guess, comes in is with his own sons, just because. And now me being a father, I kind of get it. I mean, that's an extreme side of it.
I was gonna say that's taking it.
That's taking it to a whole nother level. But I could kind of see where he's coming from a little bit. And if you know their whole story, the Alessi story, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Of basically, if we don't win this race this weekend, we're not eating next week. So kids, you have no choice. You have to go win the race. So we're going to do anything we can. We're going to cheat. We're going to do this engine. We're going to do that engine. We're like, it's pretty crazy. That's a whole nother story. That's a movie, it's wild. Yeah. So I had nothing but great interaction with Tony, and that's the one guy. I always said he's a racer's team manager. Like, and what I mean by that is he'll do anything to make your motorcycle competitive enough to go win the races, or to the best of our capabilities within the team and that team structure to go do the best we very can. So, so then we landed. So they ended up hiring Brent as well, who was my mechanic that went to Australia. So the pieces of the puzzle were just really falling into place, and it took, we had a short amount of time to do it. But it all came together, and like I said, with Honda and MotoConcepts, and then I ended up winning the championship over here. So that kind of set me up and gave me some confidence for America. There's something about a Honda that has just always fit me. I grew up on Hondas, and there's just something about me on that motorcycle that I just gel with, and I picked right up where I left off in 2012 on that bike, and kind of the rest is history.
What was it about Australia that you just were so into? Because like I've got a lot of American friends where if they can't get their Dunkin' Donuts, and if you know what I mean, like they just like when we were in Costa Rica, when we were in Costa Rica with Carmichael, he was just looking for every hard rock, just everything American that he could get, and it's like I would say that is most Americans. So like to hear a guy like you that just like loves coming to other countries and living in other countries. Like, why do you think that you're so different in that? Because I'd say that's an outlier for an American.
Yeah, I don't really know. I think it's part of it is my age. I've got to experience a lot of different things, and I think the older I've gotten, the more I have an open mind to stuff. And the food, like I'm kind of a foodie, and I love trying different foods. You guys have some amazing food here. I love all the little vibes of the coffee shops and the cafes. Like, I love that vibe. You're on the beach. Like culture, it's so cool. We don't really have that in America.
No.
And I've never been a huge fan of the beach, but my wife is like, she would just pitch a tent and live on the beach for the rest of her life. Like, she'd be good. Yeah. And she's kind of taught me really to enjoy that. Like, it's hard for me to be still.
Yeah.
So, and on the beach, you don't really have a choice. Like, you can't just be running around and jumping in the water, and there's not much to do other than be still and kind of be in the present moment. So I've kind of learned that, and especially now that we've had kids, it's so fun just to be on the beach and hanging out and just not really doing anything.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I'm going to go grab a coffee up at the cafe right across the street. And it's just, the whole vibe here is awesome. And I really enjoyed the people here. The people really genuinely like Americans, and with as much traveling as I've done, like, Europe's not like that.
No,
it's just not like that.
It's bizarre, eh?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you go to a country that is welcoming and they hear your accent and, oh, so where are you from, and it opens you up to a whole different perspective of other places, and it's just enough like America, but it's yet so far away from like America that it's awesome. Yeah, it's so awesome. Obviously, there's not a language barrier. There's a few words that you guys use that I still don't understand.
Language barrier,
but it's so similar, but yet it's so different, and I love that about it.
I always thought that when I moved to America that it would be just like plug and play. Like, I'll just be me over there, and like, I guess I was me over there, but everything was so different to what I thought, and I was like, man, there's so much more of a cultural difference, and especially I think in like humor. Like, I think Australians have a pretty fucked up sense of humor at times, and like there was definitely some places where I felt like I just stuck out like a sore thumb, and I was like, really? Like, I'm just sort of being myself, but there is a way bigger cultural gap than what you think, but it's still the same you can still just function as a human,
for sure,
without having to deal with any of the other BS in like a country that doesn't speak the language. I think
America's just more uptight. Like, everyone I've met here in Australia, it seems like, I mean, you could be in the elevator at a hotel with some random people and they'll joke with you about something, or say a joke about your kid, or it's funny humor.
Yeah.
Where America, some places, if you did that, it'd be like, you'd get such a dirty look. And I think they don't take themselves as serious over here. Where America, it just seems like everyone has their destination where they're going that day, and that's the only thing that matters, and get out of my way because I'm going to that. They don't enjoy anything from A to B. Where here, it's like breakfast, people enjoy, like, they're just in the present moment, I believe, more than Americans. I'm not saying all Americans are like that, but the majority of places you go, it seems like no one's really in the present moment. And that's what I've enjoyed about here, because I wasn't like that. I really wasn't. I was so focused on my racing, and that's the only thing that mattered, and get out of my way because I need to go get X result this weekend. And that was going to be my whole identity, was that number that I got on that weekend. Yeah. Which sucked. It sucks living like that, because if you have a bad weekend and you get 8th and you got to live with that the whole week, it's just not fun.
And your self-worth is tied to that number.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I've always tried to, I have a ton of friends still back home where I grew up from. I'd say 95% of my friends that I talk to are my friends from high school or friends that I grew up with, because my identity is not tied to my result on the weekend. I can call them, we can have a conversation. They know me as a person before I was ever a racer. Where in racing, you're so tied to that result, and that's really not a great situation to be in. And honestly, Mike Genova he was big on that he didn't care the result. He really didn't. Of course, he wanted to do well, but he wasn't going to treat me any different if I won Daytona or if I got 12th at Anaheim. Like, he really wasn't. And that's what was cool, because almost every conversation I've ever had with him, we talk on the phone for anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. I know that when he's calling, I'm like, all right, I got to set aside some time because we're going to have some deep conversations.
Yeah.
It's never about racing. It's always about life. And I love that. I love talking about being a parent. I love talking about being a better person, it's fun to talk about being a better racer, but not just on the track. It's fun to talk about what's going to make me a better racer doing these things away from the track, or mentally not worrying about that so much. Or like, that's where the past 4 or 5 years have really taken me, is really not being so concentrated on the number that I got on the weekend, but more my effort and my happiness. That's really where the Supercross only thing came from, was I can control my happiness. Well, you need to take control of it, because you're only here for a short amount of time. And if you're just going to be stuck in this miserable, circle of, oh, I got third this weekend, so I'm stoked and I'm happy and my life is better, then all of a sudden you get seventh and your life sucks. I hated that. And I wish more kids didn't have to live that. But I know it's a reality. It's a reality of sport. But I think there's a different way around that, and certain things you can focus on and not be so in that mess.
Did you just have like a change of thinking just about being like a human in general, as opposed to just like being a racer? Because the one thing with you that is like really striking is just like, how you were saying last night, like, you feel like the Aussie dudes don't have an ego. You literally don't have any like shred of an ego at all. And it's even like last night we were talking, and the conversation we got into like, talking about Charles and people we knew, and Jay Wilson was there, and like he was in the combo, and you literally circled back to like make sure he was included back into the combo. Like that's the hallmark of a person that with like a lot more going on than just like one-dimensional racer. Like that's really thinking about other people, and you're in these social circumstances. Like that's not something that is common for a guy at your level, I don't think.
I think just because I've lived it with an ego, and it doesn't work. Like,
so there was a point that you did.
I think so. I think there's some truth in to be at the highest level, you kind of have to have some sort of an ego. Mm-hmm. But you can detach from that, and I don't think most people can detach from that, because trust me, when I line up, I call it ego, call it confidence, call it cocky, I don't know what the word is for it, but I don't want to lose. Like I'm just as competitive as the next guy. But detach from that. Like, you don't have to act like that away from the track. Like, when your helmet's on, okay, act a certain way and do a certain thing, but that has changed in me, I would say.
When do you reckon that was? Or like, when did you even become aware of it?
I would say 2010, when I first signed with JGR. I met a guy kind of in and amongst some friends in North Carolina. A guy named Ryan Kelly, who still helps me today. We're business partners in a few different things. And he really just kind of made me aware of kind of how I was acting, and also actually Steve Hudson, he was the chaplain for Supercross and motocross at the time. Yeah. He would come to the JGR shop every Monday, and so between those two guys, and I knew I had some sort of, call it an issue or whatever, but I think it was just how I was raised, and we've all got our stories, right? So it just got to be deeper for me, and I got to look at certain things, and I was a pretty, I wouldn't call it negative, but I was self-centered. I had kind of a negative attitude, and I was so, just like we said earlier, just so focused on that one thing and that one result. Like, man, take a look around. Like, you've got an amazing life. Yeah. And I think if you focused on how amazing your life really is, you might actually do better at the race. Yeah. Rather than be so just stressed all the time. And then, of course, I met my wife, Paige, and you have kids, and I started to read a lot, started to read books on psychology and why I'm acting certain ways, and the childhood kind of reflects on the way you were raised, and just everything. Started to take a deeper look into myself, and because there was days, like I said, when I'm so focused on that result and you had bad results, I hated the way I felt. I didn't know how to get out of it though. I really didn't. I didn't know how that 8th place, how am I not miserable? Like, how when I get on the plane the next morning, how am I not miserable from Sunday to the next time I line up on Saturday? Because I knew I didn't like that. And then, so things just started to change since then. It's a lot of work, to be honest. I mean, it is a lot of work, but gosh, it's so worth it when you can just be a little more free. Yeah. And there's times when I still get stressed, and I've got a family to support now. I want to make them proud. I want to make them happy, but also know that it doesn't matter if I win the race or get 12th or if I don't race at all. That's what's cool is the people I have around me now. They just want me to be happy, and that was kind of what I set out to do with Ryan and
so what does he do? Like, does he have any background in that?
Yeah, he has a psychology background.
Yeah, okay.
But he's just kind of a life coach. Kind of I know people laugh at that term, but I actually think it's really important to have, or a mentor or life coach, whatever you call it.
Mentors are definitely,
So he definitely taught me a lot, and there was times when I would fight back, like, man, I'm not doing that. Like, it's
hokey and weird.
Yeah. But none of it's weird. Like, all of it was just, it's such basic stuff. Like, we actually talked about that on the way over this morning, is when you start to search and look for like just crazy weird stuff to make you happy, or even on the motorcycle, like, or the training side of it. Yeah. Like, I see some people do just some crazy weird stuff that, man, you're just searching, because almost always the basics, the basics of life, the basics of relationships, the basics of riding a dirt bike, it's usually what works. And you hear a lot of people say, oh man, I just got back to the basics. Well, why were you out in left field searching in the first place, you know? So I think it's always good to have a mentor or some friends that you can kind of bounce different ideas off of, or people that can see life through a little bit different lens than you're looking through. Because we can get caught up in it, and my wife's helped a ton. We can really separate racing now. She doesn't, not saying she doesn't care. She obviously cares about my racing, but she doesn't care. You know what I mean? She could care less if I, you know. Yeah, she just wants me to be happy
about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that, like, Jay Reinenberg, Jay's one of my guys where, like, even though I think he's a year younger than me even, but he's just, the way he was raised so different to me. He was an only child, and he spent a lot of time with his parents who were super smart, and like, I leaned on him for a lot of stuff, and like, he would always say, man, like, you get people that focus on 1% to try and fix the 99%. Yeah. As opposed to the people that would put the effort in the 99%, and then who cares about the 1%? Yeah. Like, it just doesn't matter that you've got what brand of BCAAs you've got over, you know, exactly. Because it's like, if you've done the 99% right, you know, it's sort of, the rest should just follow, right? But it's so sort of more sexy to follow like weird shit around and like hire some weird guy, because you could kind of see that with like Conor McGregor. Like, I don't know if you follow fighting or whatever, but
not
it's
much,
like,
but a little
as
bit.
he got to like the top of Conor McGregor, he started doing like animal movements and like all this like super weird shit, and you're like, bro, all you've got to do is knock this dude out. Like, I don't know that you need to walk around like a leopard for 9 minutes in the morning. Just to sort of
kind of like the diet thing, right? Like, everyone's searching for the next new diet. Well, it's really simple. Eat clean, eat your vegetables, eat your fruits. Like, it's not rocket science, but everyone's looking for the easy way out of, all right, what's going to work? Or, all right, I'm going to follow this one for 2 weeks. And then you're not going to follow that anymore. And the same with training. And it's kind of same with everything, where, just the basics, man. Just get back to the basics, and don't overcomplicate stuff, and just try and be happy. Yeah.
Do you have like, like basics of life. Like if you could write a book that would be like Justin Brayton's Life 101 Basics, like what would be like your go-to that you've kind of figured out that works for yourself nowadays?
I think the biggest thing with almost everything in life is communication between people or your spouse or your team or whatever it is. If you're not communicating by how you feel or it's with like for my wife and I, if we don't communicate, just stuff gets off track, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not one to communicate. That was my biggest struggle in the beginning was I'll just hold it in.
Yeah.
And then one day I might explode or I might just start acting a little different or whatever. So
what do
now,
you reckon that was?
I don't know. I really don't. I think it's just because I feel like I've done it myself in my way. Like I've gotten here by myself and I've never been one to rely on someone else for something because
Are you
I
a bit
didn't
of a control freak, you reckon?
Yeah, a little
stuff?
bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I've never wanted to have to blame someone else. If it didn't work, I want to look myself in the mirror and like, it's because of you.
Yeah.
And also I wanted the success to come because of how I did it or the way I did it. And like the trainer thing, like I trained, I've had a couple trainers, but not to the extent where they control everything, because I've never wanted to not get the results or not be in the shape that I think I needed to be in because of someone else. I struggle with that. I really do. Once again, it's not that difficult to be in good enough shape to do 20 laps on a motorcycle. It's just not. It's people overcomplicate it. And so if I was doing certain types of training, I'm paying someone 60 grand or 80 grand to train me a certain way, I would never want to have that excuse of, well, he trained me the wrong way, or I was lifting weights because he told me to and I shouldn't have been on this day or that day, and not saying my way's right by any means. I mean, but at least I had myself to be accountable. Yeah.
The thing that I feel like with me is that it's so much easier for me to be like really pissed off at myself than someone else. Yeah. So I think that's what like my control freak side of it. Like I'd rather grind myself into the ground, working than pass it off or whatever to somebody else. Yeah, because like, but for me, I think it was more like I just don't want to be mad at other people. Like I just found it way easier just to be mad at myself. But then I feel like that comes with there's some
baggage with that.
Yeah, there's some baggage there when you get in a pattern of like being bummed on yourself, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And with a lot of things in life, you have to learn to trust other people, right? And that's tough for me as well. It's tough for me to trust people. I think with, stuff that happened maybe in my childhood, I didn't want to trust anybody. So then I'd do it myself. I'd train myself. I'd take care of, literally just try and do everything myself. And I'll still find myself in that trap a little bit. Like, all right, well, if they're not going to do it the right way, then I'll just handle it myself and make sure it's done the right way. Even though I've got 15 other things to do today, I'll just try and get it all done. Yeah. And even whether it's racing stuff, away from racing, whether it's like just anything, I get that way. And I know it's a strength and a weakness though. So I have to balance it out.
What was it like for you growing up? Like, how did you get into racing, and was that like kind of hard to make happen, or?
Well, I grew up in Iowa, so you can only ride for about 6 or 7 months of the year anyways. Yeah. Which is, I believe, why I'm still racing now. But so yeah, my dad got me into it. He rode just kind of casually, and bought me a bike for Christmas when I was 3. And I started racing when I was 4, just like local fairground, and my grandpa would take me riding, and then my parents split when I was, I believe, around 7 or 8. So I always had a bike in the garage, but I just never really had anyone to take me. So played baseball, played football, wrestled, kind of did every other sport. And then my mom met my stepdad when I was around 12, and he had a 4-wheeler. So he would take me riding. We would just go really just cruise around, and I was terrible. Like if people saw me ride when I was 11, 12, 13, they would just laugh. So he started taking me riding, and then he bought me a CR80 and kind of just started going more and more and practicing. And then he was like, all right, let's go do a couple races. And next thing you know, a couple years later, we're at Loretta Lynn's and I was top 5 in the 80 class. And we had no idea how good or bad I was. We were just like, all right, we've heard about this race called Loretta Lynn's in Tennessee.
Heard about it.
We're going to
Seems
borrow.
like people go.
Yeah, we're going to borrow a friend's motorhome and a trailer, and we're going to go down there and check this place out. Well, I ended up getting 4th. And so I think that kind of sparked an interest for my parents. They, for my mom and stepdad Shad, was like, all right, we're going to give this kid everything because he loves it so much. And the biggest thing that Shad, my stepdad, would always teach me is, look, we'll give you everything we make. We'll max out credit cards. We'll do whatever if you're going to give it 100%. And they saw how much I truly loved it because, that's all I wanted to do. I did play other sports all through school, but...
Were you good at other sports?
I actually was, yeah. Like that's it. My friends laugh because I can go play golf tomorrow and shoot an 80 and not have played for, a year and a half. Or just kind of every, like, funny Ramsey story is he talked about ping pong. He's like that.
He is so
when he would come
sports.
stay with me in North Carolina, we'd play ping pong, and I've never seen him so mad because I would just, if we played 100 games, I'd beat him 98, and he hates it because he's actually pretty good.
He's good at everything.
Yeah,
dude.
he's the same way. So, but it's the one thing that like riding motorcycles trumped everything else. Yeah, I did everything else because I liked it. And
do you reckon
it.
that there was a part of you that, like, that whole control thing to where you just didn't want to play team sports?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And that's why I loved wrestling. So wrestling was kind of, and growing up where I did in Iowa, that, like, wrestling, you
Midwest sort of.
Yeah, you need to be a wrestler. That was like, I don't know if you heard of Dan Gable, but he was one of the best wrestlers ever. And
is that why they call it a Gable grip?
Yeah.
You do that,
that's from Dan Gable.
Yeah, right.
So he was the coach at University of Iowa, and was obviously a amazing wrestler. But
how far did you get into wrestling? Like, did you do it like pretty serious? Like, you were doing like gnarly weight cuts and shit for competitions? You remember that stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were just telling that story the other day.
What was that like?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved that. I loved.
Because if you like to grind, wrestling's the sport.
It. Yeah. You'd be, 8 or 12 pounds over and got to cut that weight and
how were
wear
you doing
plastics.
Back then? Like the plastic bags and just jogging around?
Yeah, plastic bags. But also one of my friends had a sauna in his basement that we put a bicycle in, and he had a boxing bag as well. Yeah. So we would just sit in there and cut weight, or go to the local YMCA. It's like a gym. Yeah. And sit in the sauna and then run, and it was crazy.
There's something cool about like the bond that you've got with guys in like the wrestling room, because you just like I think like some of the boys here even get a bit pissed off at like how much time I spend with my jiu-jitsu boys, but it's like, you don't get it. Like we're fucking bashing each other. Like there's such a mutual respect that you get, and then when the boys are cutting weight, you want to go in the sauna with them, or when they're getting ready for a comp, like you'll just be a punching bag for them. Like there's a cool bond that gets formed. For sure, yeah. And it's why most people, when they retire from sport or whatever they're doing, they always say, hey, what do you miss the most? I miss the boys. Like I miss the locker room. I miss the track days, the long test days. Like you'd miss those things. You don't miss the races that you win or have won, or you don't really miss those days. You just miss the camaraderie. Like I know the one thing that I'm going to miss the most is the test track days. Like just hanging out with the boys, and you're doing motos together, and it's just so fun. But going back to the wrestling thing, I remember nights when I would get home from wrestling and my mom would have a can of green beans. Like that's all I could eat was just that can of green beans, because I had weigh-ins in 2 days or whatever it is. So just interesting times. And but that was my favorite was wrestling, because it was so similar to moto. Yeah, it was really simple. You work this hard, you're gonna get this result. You work this hard, you're gonna get that result. And moto, or I guess business or life is kind of that way anyway. Yeah. But those ones you couldn't hide. You couldn't, like if you played baseball, you might strike out
4 times in a row, and you might miss a catch in the outfield and you might still win the game, and you're still celebrating. Well, you didn't do anything to win the game, you know what I mean? So I didn't really like that feeling. Or you could be the opposite. I could hit 4 home runs and make some crazy plays, and you might lose the game still. So it was totally out of your control, where wrestling, or like you in jiu-jitsu, it's just straight up one-on-one. You can't hide. If you've done the work, it's going to show. If you haven't, same in Supercross, you know, the last 5 laps, or your bike setup, or all of it. Like, if you haven't done your work, there's no hiding.
Yeah, and there's a weird thing about the like level of accountability of putting yourself just by yourself. Like, especially, I'd say more so in like a wrestling or a jiu-jitsu sense, because it's literally just 2 dudes on a mat. Yeah. And it's like one dude's going to win, one dude's going to lose, and everyone's watching you.
Totally,
and it's like, it's a weird experience.
It's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and it's
so you
weird.
Work harder,
Yeah, it's like weird to like have that headspace, but then like voluntarily do it. I always wonder about like the headspace that you've got to be in to voluntarily put yourself in front of all of those people in a 50-50 chance, and then like you don't even know how good the other dude is. Like he could be so much better than you, and you like literally don't even have a chance.
Idea. Yeah, I think that's a unique part of I guess just us, right? Like, a lot of people don't want that. They don't want to put themselves out there that much to do a sport that's one-on-one. Nothing against those people, but I just think it takes I don't know. I've never thought about it. It's because I've known no different. Like, I've never been on the other side of the fence, so I kind of think it's weird not to feel that way. So, yeah, but I guess the pressure of, if you do lose, you're judged. Maybe people have a different mindset of when they do lose, on the way people are going to treat them, or whatever, which is part of the reason of what we talked about earlier, your identity in winning or losing, or 8th or 10th, or some people just don't want to face that fear, I guess. I love facing it, and I still get to face it almost every weekend. But I just have a different way of going about it. If I don't achieve the result, or if I'm one-on-one and I lose, I have a different outlook and way of processing it and moving on, and kind of leaving it there. For you, maybe just leave it on the mat, and that's that. Where it's hard to do, though. Yeah.
Do you think that by doing that kind of stuff, like still racing and like putting yourself out there and like trying to achieve these, like, just dude, to win a freaking Supercross is like almost impossible, right? Like 19 dudes won't do it. One dude will, and it's like, but obviously, like, you get something out of it that keeps you coming back. And I think it's interesting what you were saying before. It's like, you've won races, you've been on podiums, but the stuff that you miss is the track days. But that is kind of, that's like a metaphor for the whole enjoy the process. It's like the process, not the destination, right? Because it's like, that's the sort of, that's the thing, is like, you do enjoy the process of it. And it's like, if you can get to a point where you enjoy the process, and then the results sort of like, like, it's kind of it's like your guidepost, but it's not the thing that you live and die by, right? Yeah, for sure. And that's, over the years, that's the most fun part, the process of trying to achieve what you're after, right? And those are the days that I don't take for granted. Especially now that I know who knows how many more years I've got to race. And so, just being in the grind with your fellow competitors or training mates or coach or whatever it is, the process is, man, it's just so fun. And to have goals, right? Like, I can't believe, it would be a bummer to not have that carrot out in front of you to chase, to not have those goals to, all right, here's a roadmap of how I think and my team thinks we're going to achieve these results. Let's try and get there. But it's 4 months, or I actually said to you last night, I said my 2020 Supercross season started in June for me. Like, that's how long it takes to be prepared. And I've had years in the past where I think the question you asked was, can you kind of enjoy Australia or be on more of a holiday than normal? Well, the answer was, it's been kind of split. The first year I was here, it was basically a holiday, and I paid for it in
Supercross season in America. The next year I fully just buckled down, and it was just full on training, and I had maybe the best season I've ever had. Last year was kind of in the middle, like we've kind of holiday, kind of train, and then ended up getting sick. So it was a real struggle. And once again, I paid for it in America. This year, it started at the end of June of preparing, and then and I think you can kind of see it in my riding and training and mindset, and we've done everything we can for our immune system to be boosted this year for me and my wife and kids. And so yeah, it's a long process, but that's the fun part. And the thing is, you don't even know for sure if it's going to work, and it's that long of a process. But you just know I've just taken stuff that I've learned throughout the years, and once again, go back to the basics. It's not rocket science. You kind of get there and take that road that you believe is going to work for you, and get after it.
When you did that first Loretta's, was that like the first time where you went, okay, I could be a professional at this? Because you've probably got one of the gnarliest, most roundabout stories to being a factory Honda rider in 2019 of anybody. Like, it's such a crazy story to come from where you come from. Like, it might even be underappreciated, bro. Like, it probably is underappreciated.
Yeah. No, I had being a professional Supercross racer wasn't even on the radar. It seemed like where I grew up, arena cross was the big thing, because the opener of the arena cross series was in Des Moines, Iowa every year. So guys like Jeremy McGrath and those guys that I watched on TV at the Supercrosses were just complete cartoon characters. Did they exist? I don't know. It was that far-fetched for me. Yeah. So it was almost like I couldn't even dream that big. That's how far away it was. And then I got to go to the arena crosses a couple times. I'd race amateur day, and then we'd go Saturday night to watch the race. So I looked up to one of the guys I looked up to grew up in the same town I did, was Chad Pedersen. Yeah. He rode for Pro Circuit for a couple years in Supercross, and he was winning arena crosses. And then like Denny Stevenson and Buddy Antonez, and like those were the guys that I looked up to, because that seemed...
Budman's so cool.
Yeah, Budman's awesome. I mean, Budman's single-handedly one of the biggest reasons why I'm sitting in this chair talking to you today. Was fast forward a little bit in arena cross, I ended up being teammates with him. And he took me under his wing and saw something that I didn't even see. And I'll rewind a little bit. What really made me realize that I could potentially do this was I was a senior in high school, and we showed up to the Des Moines Arena Cross for my first ever pro race. And it was... Were
you just the star of school at that point? Or did no one even know you were doing
it? They didn't even really know. I mean, my close friends did, but yeah, I'd race local races and win and whatever, but it wasn't that big of a deal. The bigger deal was the high school quarterback or the good baseball player, Yeah.
Which was Nate Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. So I showed up. We just showed up out of the back of a box van, and when I say I was on a stock motorcycle, I was on a stock motorcycle. It was stock pipe, stock suspension.
What block was it?
Hondas. So I was supported by a local Honda dealership, Storm Lake Honda in Iowa. And we showed up, and I was throwing up in my helmet during practice. I was so nervous.
Really?
And it was the year Damon Bradshaw came back. So it was just, there was a lot of guys. I mean, the list was long that year of Stevenson and Budman and Bradshaw, and a lot of Supercross guys would come race because it was in November.
Yeah.
So I ended up being fastest in practice. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I think there was almost 200 entries to that race. And so it's faster than a lot of my heroes. And we went there thinking I wouldn't even qualify. We'll just get some experience. It'll be cool to race in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So then the heat race, I hole shot. Bradshaw passes me. I pass him back and win the heat race. And there's still a photo.
Shit.
Yeah, there's still a photo of me where it says the rookie passes the veteran. And I give Bradshaw crap to this day because I mess with him about it. And the main event, I led the main event for a little bit, ended up crashing. I think I got 6th or 7th that night. And right then, I was like, for one, maybe I'm better than we think. For two, these are my heroes. Like, I was faster than my heroes. I was completely out of shape. Like I had no business doing 20 laps on an arena cross track because I didn't really know what training was at the time. So yeah, then fast forward a couple years, I ended up getting rookie of the year that year in arena cross. Then I graduated high school. My parents basically said, we'll support you for a year. So I moved to California. I loaded up a U-Haul by myself, didn't know anyone in California. Drove out there and lived with a guy that my parents actually graduated high school with from Iowa. He lived in Anaheim. And some friends in and amongst our family kind of lined that up. So I called him and said, hey, you sure you don't mind me sleeping on your couch for a few months? He said, no, absolutely not. So I loaded up a U-Haul and I cried for probably 4 hours of the first 4 hours of the drive, just 24-hour drive from where I lived. I was leaving everything, I thought at the time, right? I had a high school girlfriend. I had my family. Everything was comfortable. I was winning local races. And now I'm going out into this big world of Southern California. So yeah, so I loaded up and I rode Lake Elsinore every day and ended up that next year being teammates with Buddy Antonez. And Bud, man, totally took me under his wing. And we just had so much fun. I was teammates with Buddy Antonez and Brad Hagseth that year. And those two guys still to this day are two of my favorite people. I learned so much from them. I was 19 or 20, maybe even 21, I forget. But and hanging out with these two guys in arena cross, like I just learned so much, good and bad. I learned some things what not to do and most things what to do. And then in 2004, fill and ride became available with what is now Geico Honda. So factory connection Honda team at the time. Budman called me and said, hey, I just got a call from Eric Kehoe. They're doing a tryout this week. It was the week after the final round of arena cross.
Yeah.
And you should come out and at least try. And I had never ridden a Supercross track before. So when I would race arena cross, I'd literally just show up and we would just race, you know. And most of the time it was when I was off the couch because I couldn't ride in Iowa.
Yeah, because of the winters.
Yeah, because of the winters. But when I was in Southern California, we'd just ride. Like I'd ride Lake Elsinore motocross track and then go race arena cross on the weekend. So Budman took me to the Honda test track, and I had a tryout, and I'll never forget it. I mean, it was like yesterday, but I was riding Billy Leninovich's practice bike, and the team was out there, and they I remember the suspension guy, after I did some laps, he's like, all right, can you do 15 laps? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be bad. So I kind of gutted through it and got done. And they said, all right, you want to race St. Louis this weekend? And I said, heck yeah, really? So they just had me out there. I don't know if guys rode the bike the day before or what, but so I ended up getting that fill-in ride. And I flew out the next day to St. Louis Supercross. And it was when they had Friday practice and Saturday race. So I remember getting all my gear and helmet and everything shipped to the hotel. And I put on all my stuff.
I was going to say, did you put everything on the hotel?
It was amazing.
It
was amazing. Good. But what's crazy is that feeling still hasn't went away. I'm 35. When I get new gear and new helmet, new boots, like I froth on it. Like I love that. So yeah, Budman got me that kind of first fill-in ride, and then he was kind of like my acting agent for a while because he was in that kind of field of work, and ended up getting a 2-year deal with Moto World. It was Moto World Suzuki at the time, but that fill-in ride helped me get that.
Do you remember your first laps around the Supercross track?
Yeah, I was like a fish out of water.
Yeah, did it feel super weird? Yeah,
super weird. And then, I mean, for half the day, I didn't even jump the triple.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that was so. The day before I did the tryout thing, Budman brought out his 250 4-stroke practice bike for me to ride on the track, just to kind of get the track down. And it was bad. It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good at all. But I quickly learned. I quickly learned kind of how to do it, and just the jumping and stuff kind of came natural to me. It was more the timing of it. Like, wait, so I got to jump from here to there, and I can't over jump it, and I can't under jump it.
Yeah.
Like, all right. So it was cool to have a kind of a coach and a teacher in Budman.
I was gonna
He had
say,
been there
like,
and done that. And yeah.
Because he's still like a really good coach now.
He's awesome.
Right?
Yeah. I worked with him. So yes, through my Supercross days, and then he ended up, I forget how, but somehow he said basically, hey, I'm not going to be able to work with you next year. I think he was working with Tomac and a couple other guys, and he just didn't really have room. So he's like, I think you would fit well with Nathan Ramsey.
Oh,
and I always,
how,
that's how the Ramsey connection came about. And I always had tons of respect for Nate Dogg, more for the way he is off the track more than on the motorcycle.
I was gonna say, like, it's kind of crazy that you two got together, because like you remind me of him so much. Like when I'm talking to you, I feel like there's that connection back to Nate Dogg, because he was so influential in my life in America. Like we used to call him my American dad. Yeah, like he would just pick up the pieces that I would leave.
And he's so everywhere. Caring, huh? Like he would drop, if he had 100 things going on, he would drop all 100 and pick you back up if you needed picked back up. And so we clicked right away. We just, man, we had so much fun together. And if he wasn't with KTM, I'd still be working with him today. Yeah. We would be. Between him and Budman, those two guys are just, for one, two of my favorite guys, but also very, very smart. Like they're smart guys. And I try to emulate Nate Dogg on a daily basis from just life. Like he's got it figured out on how to navigate life.
Yeah, and he's one of those people that is so genuine. Yeah. Like there's just no, you know, like he'd drop 100 things for you. Like there's definitely people like that they still would drop all 100 things to help you out, but then you'd hear about it.
Yeah, totally.
Like there's just not even that with him. Yeah. Like there's just, there's something so like, he's like a monk sort of type dude almost. And like the way that he talks to people, the way that he handles situations, like he is definitely if you want to aspire to be like anybody, he's definitely the kind of guy.
I think a lot of people don't know that about him though, huh? Like you got to kind of know him to figure that out. He's not going to.
Well, that's because he won't tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's the type of guy that I never needed to impress, where I think a lot of riders and even to their mentors or coaches, like you're always looking to impress them. Where Nate, I could cry to him. We could laugh. We could like just anything. I could be a human being, I guess, to Nathan Ramsey, and I didn't have to just be the racer. And even with Budman too, same thing. Like if we're driving to the track, we're not talking about my schedule that day at the track, or we're not talking about things we're going to do that day. We're more talking about your marriage and how to be a better person and your experiences in the past of certain things. And I love that. I love getting deep with people about life, because I just think you learn so much from that, and you can, it brings everybody down to the same level, rather than just talking about how fast you were or how good you can hit this corner or how fast you are in the whoops. Like, yeah, we'll go show everybody on Saturday, but in the meantime, let's talk about what's going on. How's your marriage? How the kids doing? How's things going? Are you struggling in any areas? Are you like that's the stuff that I really like to dig into, because if you can dig into that, it's going to make you such a better racer. I don't think people dig into that enough, even just in general, whether you're a businessman or anything, an athlete. I think digging into the core of yourself it's so good to do. Yeah, I enjoy it.
It's a super rewarding experience, and like I've been thinking about it a bit lately, and I mean, like this show sort of goes there a lot of times, I think, because it's something that I'm super interested in as well. But I definitely think that there's an element of like all the friends that I'm really close with, like and no matter how long I've known them for, like this isn't a gauge of like how long we've been friends. But if somebody is going to be vulnerable and share things with me about themselves that they're going through that are like deeper than, just to like, oh yeah, how's this, how's that. It gives you like a sense of, I don't know, it's like there's a certain trust that comes from that, and then there's a real connection that gets made when you're like willing to be vulnerable and tell people real shit. I don't know, I feel like it just sort of dissolves a bunch of the surface level stuff, because I feel like we all kind of do crave that in a way, but I think the people that sort of don't do that maybe are worried about being judged for it, or
For sure,
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think if you're the person to bring it up, and especially in a situation that we're in, or you're on such a big platform with this podcast, or if I can do an interview and you know, share some of my weaknesses with people, it automatically brings people to your level. And I love that. Like, just, I could tell right away, we haven't known each other long, but just last night, the conversation, like, we could have surface level conversation of, you ask me a question, I have an answer, and then you have a question of, well, why do you think that is? And then we talk about that, and then you get deeper. Like, I love that, because there's always a surface answer. Hey, how you doing? I'm good, mate. How are you? Good. No, you're not. You're not really doing good.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
They're like, what's on your mind?
Yeah, exactly. And then you can talk about it, and then it's so relatable because we're all going through it.
Yeah.
We're all in it together. We're all in this one big struggle. Maybe not the same struggles, but we're all dealing with it. It doesn't matter
different
if
versions of the same struggle.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it as well last night. Just some of the most successful people in the world have deeper struggles than you could ever imagine, and that's helped me a lot with being friends with some of my idols. Of like, man, wait, what? When you were winning all those times, or you did this, you were going through that? Like, really?
Yeah.
No one would ever know that. So we're all human beings, and it kind of just, it makes you so much more relatable to everyone, and I think that's the best part about it. Like, I love getting in those deep conversations, and because we're not all, we're doing good, but we're all in a struggle as well.
And it's good to learn from people too. Like, even just the last couple of weeks, there's been some fucking awesome guests on where I've learned a lot. And even this process, like, it is a big platform now, and I'm not used to this many people looking at me. Yeah. And like, this is what it is. Like, the podcast is like me, you, Josh is in here mixing it. That's it. There's 4 people. Yeah. But then like 100,000 people will look at this, exactly. And that's a weird thing to deal with, you know? So it's like, for me, I'm doing the podcast, but I'm really, like, what I'm really doing is, like, I know that you're coming in here today and I've got to do this conversation, but I'm really just trying to learn shit from you that can help me just get through the process of recording this and, like, putting it out to the world and having that, you know, that many people looking at you or listening to you. Like, I
think that's why you've been successful and why you'll continue to be successful, is because you can be relatable. Now, I've listened to several of your podcasts, and it's fun because it's so it's relatable, but it's just, you do learn a lot, but it's no BS. It's not in here we're not just talking about the races I've won so far in Australia, and we're not just talking about Daytona. We're talking about life. Like, I love that, because I race motorcycles for 20 minutes a week, maybe, true. And some on the weekends off, you don't have anything. What's in between that? What do you think about when you're at the semi truck in between races? What's your home life like? Like, what's your thought process all week? And so I love taking a deep dive in that, and that's what we talked about earlier. Ryan Kelly has helped me so much with, was just kind of that, navigating through my thoughts. Your thoughts precede feelings. Like, it's just a snowball effect, and you have the power to stop that, and then being in control of your happiness. Like, a lot of people don't think they have control. Like, it's your choice, man. It's totally your choice. You want to be happy or not? Okay, if you want to be happy, then let's take the steps to be happy. If you don't, sorry, man. You've got a choice.
Do you know why you were negative before you sort of went into, like, this way of thinking?
I mean, not really. Like, I can't pinpoint one thing, but I think just probably my childhood, and
like with your parents splitting up and stuff.
And I got to see my mom. Like, my mom's like me. Like, she had 3 kids. She left my dad at the time. We lived in my aunt and uncle's garage, and she worked 2 jobs, and we rode the bus to school. Like, she just made it happen, and I got to see that. So I'm like, get out of my way. Like, I'm gonna be like that. I'm gonna make it happen. And so seeing that and going through all that stuff, I think is one of the reasons why, because I would get negative on people that were too positive. I didn't like being around them. I'm like, man, everything can't be that good.
Yeah.
But now I've kind of realized, like, you don't have to be too positive, but you can be positive. You have a choice of
the way that
I didn't realize the way I thought made me feel the way that I did.
Yeah.
I just thought I was having those thoughts and get out of my way and I'm gonna act a certain way. But like I said earlier, that's a strength as well. It's just
the way that you balance
it, and when do you tap into that strength and when do you not? And I think that's what I've balanced over the last 4 years and being married, because there is days where I'm like, okay, get out of my way because I'm getting stuff done today.
Yeah.
Or at the races, like when my helmet goes on, it's on. Like I'm not a dirty rider at all, but like I want to get the job done.
Yeah. And the thing too, like, I suppose, like, it's not like it's been easy for you either. Like, it's been a hard road to get to where you are. And I know even in your personal life, you've had like some hard shit go down. So like, it would be kind of easy, like, to be negative with like a bunch of, and like, again, like you were saying, you know, say whether it's Villapoto or Dungey, like, they've all got their own shit. Like, they won all the titles, but like in between that, it's like, it's not like it was easy to be them, but it was like you were dealing with that stuff and you weren't winning the championship. So it's like, I could see why you could be in like a negative headspace when like you're just in a pressure cooker of a deal. The sport that you're in, you could lose your life at the drop of a hat. Like, it's a pretty gnarly, like, you guys are just living your life at 14,000 revs, dude. Like, and it just doesn't stop. Yeah.
And I love my story though. And I think most people like their own stories, but I love the road that I had to take to get here. And, you know, I think you look in certain sports, like if you look at Michael Jordan, he probably wouldn't make a very good coach, or some of the best riders or some of the best athletes, they don't make good coaches. I honestly believe, and I don't know if I'll ever go into that, but I think through all my struggles, I'll be a better coach or mentor than I ever was a racer. And I think riders still to this day can attest, like, there's so many guys that I line up with that I've helped throughout the years. Of just, the list is pretty long, that people that have been at my house and literally in tears crying about something, they'll go win the race that weekend. But I love that. Like, I like helping, and I kind of know the root cause of a lot of it, because there's a lot of dysfunction in all sports. Like, to be at the highest level, it's a tough road to get there for a lot of people. But I love that. I love what I've learned throughout all of it. Even though it was tough, man, I've learned so much, and I've gotten to live it and be happy. And I don't know many people can say that they can truly race for as long as I've done and actually enjoy these last 4 years they've been so fun. They really have. And if I could help somebody at the beginning of their career try and enjoy it as much as I have, look, it's still tough. There's still pressure. There's still all that. But that's good every now and again. But the way I've balanced it, I think, is going to help me, or has helped me, be a better friend, be a better husband, be a better dad, be a better person just in general. So I love the roadmap that I've had to take to get here. I don't know if I'd do it again, but that's with anything, right? You look back on it, you're like, man, I don't know how I did that, but here we are.
What was like the hardest bit? Like the hardest point of the whole journey? Like, if you look back at it, like, say chapter's closed, that's it, and like full reminisce mode, you look back and you're like, that's the bit I would never ever want to do again.
I would say my first year 450, I was so focused. Like, I came out of the 250 class.
Was that on the MDK bike?
MDK, yep. On KTMs. And then I moved to 450 from motocross and did really well. I was in the mindset of
you actually grinding. Did do really good on that bike that season, eh?
Yeah. I won the last moto at Steel City. Then I signed with JGR. So me and my friend Heath, who traveled with me for years, he's kind of my high school best friend and still my best friend to this day. But he moved to North Carolina with me, and from that, I'd say that next 6 months was probably the hardest time of my life for several reasons, but mainly we're moving to a new place. I had a girlfriend of like 3 years or so that some stuff went crazy there, and like I was kind of heartbroken over that. And then I was moving to a new team, which they were welcoming, but not as much as I would have hoped or had liked. So moving to a new place,
weird because that was like their first year doing it, right?
Yeah, I think it was their third year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, second or third year. But then their hands were tied because we were getting a new motorcycle. We were getting the new 2010 Yamaha, totally different generation.
Yeah.
So, and it was like I was just a workaholic. Like I
was
would grind.
James your teammate then?
No, it was Josh Grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I moved there in October, and it just rained and rained and rained. And I was used to Southern California. I could just ride every day.
Yeah.
I'd ride and train every day. It was like clockwork. So I couldn't ride. I didn't have a motorcycle to ride for one. So we didn't get our bikes till like late December. And I just, it just wasn't a good vibe just from me to the team to me. Just, we struggled that first little bit. And it was mainly because my hands were tied. I couldn't do what they hired me to do. I couldn't ride. I couldn't train. I couldn't, it was just really, really difficult. I remember sitting in the Best Buy parking lot in North Carolina on the phone with my agent at the time, just crying, saying, get me out of here. Like, I've got to get back to KTM or something. Like, Anaheim's in like a month, and I literally haven't even rode the motorcycle, and I haven't rode. Typically, my weight is about 165 to 170. I was 183 pounds.
Just because you
at
haven't
the
been
line.
doing anything.
That, and the trainer they had at the time was just basically he was a football guy. So I was lifting heavy weights, which I knew it was the wrong thing. So there's just so many things. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't really the team's fault, because I respect everyone there a lot. Like, there's a lot of smart dudes, but everyone's hands were just tied. And so I would say that was the toughest period. And somehow, some way, I line up in Anaheim and we get top. I end up getting 5th in the series that year, my first year in 450, and getting a permanent number, which I chose number 10. And like, it ended up being okay. And that next year I met my wife, but there was 6 months of like, just, it was difficult.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough. And then once I crawled out of that and the bike, we started to dial the bike in and started to get some podiums, and like, it all started to come around. But like I said, there's 4 to 6 months there where it's probably the hardest time, mainly because I couldn't do, like, I knew what I had to do to be successful.
Yeah.
And it was my first year in the class. I knew, like, this was my livelihood, this is what I've wanted to do forever, race the premier class on one of my dream teams, Joe Gibbs Racing. Like, are you serious? Like, this is awesome. And then we struggled for a little bit.
What got you through that time then? Like, obviously you didn't give up. So
that's never a choice. That's never even an option. I think I just kept showing up.
Yeah.
I kept training, even though I knew it was kind of the wrong training. Because my whole philosophy going into that year was, it's my first year in the class. It's a team this is like the best team in the pits, in my opinion, at the time. I needed a change of scenery, so North Carolina was it. So I just kept showing up. I just kept showing up to the races, kept doing the best I could, and that first generation bike was not very good. So we were struggling with that. The team was struggling with that. So you just got to keep showing up and keep doing the best you can. And then I eventually, we crawled out of that hole and started to make it better.
It's a weird personality trait sometimes, like, because I often wonder, like, I stayed in America for so long, I just couldn't, like, I was like barely making it work all the time. And now I look back, a lot of it was just me.
Yeah.
Just me in my own way. I didn't think, for whatever reason, like, I didn't think that I was even worthy of doing good, if that makes sense. Like, I thought that, I feel like I'd made such a mess of so many things in the past that I would let the past me sort of sabotage the future me.
Yeah,
I was
totally.
like, you know what, dude, you're not like, you fucked up all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really deserve that. So you sort of, you stop it there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for whatever reason, bro, I just couldn't give up. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't leave. I just had to keep doing it, even to when it like doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a trait with some people. I wonder what that is, because you obviously went through that same thing of like, even though you wanted to give up, like you
Yeah.
just couldn't.
You
like
couldn't,
something in you just doesn't
Yeah.
let you do
and
it.
I think with any success story, there's always that, right? Like, oh, there was this time in this year where I was just done. I was going to give up, and then this came about. Like I read about it a lot in like singers, like their last gig before they,
Yeah.
like this country singer Jason Aldean has a story that's crazy. He showed up to his last kind of just it was like a gig that he was doing in a bar, and his last one is when the record label, the guy from one of the record label that signed him, just happened to be at that bar that night.
Yeah.
And the next day he was like moving back home. He was giving up, and now he's one of the most successful country singers to ever live, and he's multi-millionaire and just dialed, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many of those stories.
Yeah.
And almost always when you get to that point, if you just keep grinding and keep going, you'll eventually get there
Yeah.
where you want to be.
And the funny thing too is like, you'd sort of think that it's gonna, like when you're in those moments, you think that it's like gonna take this special thing, and that's gonna be what turns the top. But it's not. Like,
never,
literally,
yeah.
it's like a cloud, eh?
Yeah.
It just slowly lifts.
Yeah.
Like, I think what happens is like, if you wait for that one thing to click, or that, like, it's sort of like, that's never really, in my experience,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. It's like a fog just lifts.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, okay, I can see
Yeah.
again.
And it's what we talked about earlier with the searching, right? So when you're in those times, it's easy to just search and try this and try that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times you'll hear people say, so what are you doing? Like, now that you're doing this, you're like,
Same old
hey,
shit.
I hadn't done anything different, but now I've done the same thing, and now I'm just getting these results. And I think it takes that to then, it's almost like you're supposed to go through that, you know? I've thought about that before too. And then it's like you're supposed to go through it, and then you can enjoy the other side a little more. Like, if I didn't go through the struggles and all of a sudden I'm winning races my first year in the 450 class and everything just seems easy, like, would you even enjoy it? I don't know if you would. And then if it did happen, it would be a bummer to look back on and be like, man, I won for this many years straight, and yeah, I didn't have any fun doing it, but I've got all this money to show that I've enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd want that.
Well, like, what do you think James looks back like?
I think it's tough.
Because I think that like, that's kind of James, right? It's
And
like
he had no choice. I talked to Roger Larson, who's a mutual friend of ours. Like, I've felt that pressure now being in Australia that James felt his whole life. Because when I line up here, I can't lose.
Win, yeah.
I cannot lose.
Yeah.
And if I do, which the mindset that I'm in now, it's like, I don't say I wouldn't care, but I would deal with it a lot different.
Yeah.
But that's the pressure that James felt his whole life, or Ricky felt his whole life, or Villapoto or Dungey.
At
the top
level.
Yeah. So I know exactly why they wouldn't want to continue. It's a difficult space to be in, because any other sport, like if you get 8th at a NASCAR race, it's fine. You had the 8th place car. It's happy days. If Stewart got 8th at Anaheim 1, imagine his week. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part about our sport, is like, it's only the winner and maybe second or third that are
glorified. Yeah.
The 7th place guy, who's a bad dude on a dirt bike, like a bad dude.
Yes. Gets like ridiculous.
He just gets shunned and like, yeah, we don't care about you.
Well, that's like when I have people that, like, I take some of my jiu-jitsu buddies to like the Supercrosses so that they can see it, and they're like, that literally the guy in 7th or 8th or whatever, or coming last, for instance, they're like, so would you be as good as that dude? And I'm like, fucking no. Like, no, by the most you can say no. Like, that dude is a legitimate
one of the best
beast
in the world to ride. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy.
And then I just don't get, like, I wish, like I was saying to you last night, like, do you like the idea of a televised top 10 sort of shootout to where that gives you your gate pick or whatever? Like, if you're the top 10 in qualifying, instead of the opening ceremonies where you just ride around the track and wave at the fans, you're actually putting in a heater, and then that determines your gate pick for the heat or something. Because then
I'm
it's
open-minded
like,
to it all. I think mixing it up every weekend is cool.
Yeah,
I
true.
think throwing that in one weekend, throwing Triple Crown in the next weekend, I think just throw anything at us. I think then you have more, like the Triple Crown thing in America has been awesome.
Yeah.
You have guys that,
You
like,
reckon
for
Coop
instance,
would have won the title without the Triple Crown? That started his whole deal.
it did start it. I think he was going to be good regardless, but yeah, it's hard to say. I mean,
It definitely could have had something like pretty big to do with it though, right?
for sure, yeah. And rewind 1 year, Anaheim 2, I won I got second in one of the Triple Crowns and fourth overall. And just that second in that Triple Crown race, so I went 2, 5, 3. And just those 2 podiums in the Triple Crown, it felt so good. And then I won the Atlanta Triple Crown. I mean, it felt amazing just to win one of the Triple Crowns. And then all my sponsors are on TV like I just won the race.
Yeah.
Like, it benefits so many people. And then you have 5 people going home happy rather than just one.
Yeah.
Or 5 sponsors going home truly, or maybe even more, because like I remember one Triple Crown, there was 3 different winners in the 250 class and 3 in the 450 class.
Yeah.
So there's 6 potential sponsors on their motorcycles that get love, and 6 different riders, not to mention the guys that maybe got second or third that wouldn't normally get a second or third. So, and the racing is just, it's so fun to watch. Like, I was injured for a couple races last year, and I remember sitting at home watching one of the Triple Crowns.
Yeah, cheers, Chad.
Yeah, exactly. It was that crash, huh? I think it was a Houston Supercross. Had some buddies over, and it was so fun to watch. And then the next weekend was a regular 20-minute race. Like, I could have turned it off halfway through, and I'm one of the biggest fans of the sport ever.
Yeah.
Like, I just love it. But so I'm okay with mixing it up. I think it's better for, some riders will hate it, some riders will love it. Every sport, has some sort of a playoff system. I don't know if that's the answer, but I'm happy to give suggestions or listen, or like, I think something doesn't really need to change because what we're doing is somewhat successful, but from certain angles it's successful, and from others it's not. Yeah. And I think from the teams and sponsors aspect, they're ready for some sort of a change. I don't know if we all know what that is, but as a fan of the sport, man, when I'm done racing, I want to be able to turn on the TV Saturday night and be so excited to watch the race. And whether it's Triple Crown or double header, whatever it is, I think it'd be cool to throw something different in every weekend.
Well, like, you look at Mookie just won one of the motos at the Monster Cup. Mm-hmm. Bro, that changes his next 2 months. Totally. He's a fucking winner. He can win. For 2 months, he's a winner. Yeah. And he's literally, like, imagine the way that's going to affect his mindset. Mm-hmm. Imagine the boost that gave to the MotoConcepts guys. Exactly. Like, there's an underground economy of momentum, and I think it's so overlooked, and I think that the sport needs to do whatever it can to not just have the momentum with Factory Honda and Kawasaki. Like, how do we make it to where everybody in the pits has a feeling of accomplishment? Is there a, I think that there's things that have to be done to ensure more winners, because like we're talking about NASCAR, that's the most boring sport on the face of the earth in terms of what they actually do. They drive cars in a circle. Why is it so successful? Because like 15 dudes could legitimately win. So you're like, the thing itself is quite boring. Yeah. But what makes it exciting is all of the possible storylines. And now too, like, we're seeing it with like what Wes does with MotoSpy, what's the outdoor series called? No, the bloody, what's it called? What's the one that Troy Adamitis does now? The outdoors?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I know what you're talking about. It used to be the Great Outdoors, which was awesome. Yeah.
But like, so that with all the storylines that they're doing now, it's like people can get invested in those people. I feel like whatever we can do to just give everybody that momentum to where they all feel like they're achieving these goals, and it's not just this 2-horse race.
Well, just recently, like you mentioned, the Monster Cup, like if that last main event's 20 minutes, AC probably doesn't win.
Yeah.
Like Tomac's he's just gnarly. He's gnarly in that, especially the last 10 minutes. And then, so there's 3 different winners. They all can go home stoked. They all believe they can win. And if you look at when I won Daytona, what I do the week before, I won a Triple Crown in Atlanta.
Yeah.
The week before.
Yeah.
I beat all the best guys. All the best guys it was a crazy race. Anderson passed me a couple of times. I passed him back. All the best guys are all over me. Well, then I got to feel what it was like to do that. The very next weekend, on the worst track for me, I just check out. I'm like, oh, this is no big. This is like the easiest race in my life. And Tomac's coming towards the end. Okay, I'll just pick it back up and match him and win the race. It was crazy. But do I do that if Atlanta wasn't a Triple Crown?
Sorry. Pause that. Yeah, that's crazy, to think about that.
Yeah.
That race, dude, like, it seems like that is such a... Does it feel like validation almost for like the whole 4 years to just win that one race? Like that was where it's like you put your flag in the ground, you're like, see, I
it was
did
a validation for honestly my whole life.
Yeah,
not
true.
even just the 4 years. I mean, that's what I'm gonna be defined by now. A lot of it is winning that race, or people will remember that forever. They're not gonna remember the race that I came from 10th to 2nd at Seattle in 2000 whatever, you know, like you're not going to remember those races. So it just the weight that got stripped off my shoulders that night, I can't even explain it, like how good it felt, how good it feels to just even today to talk about it and to know that I've won a race. I've raced for how long and I've won a race. And it's something to be so proud of. But then other guys, you know, they look at it like, oh, you've only won one race? I won 25 or 30 or whatever. We're looking at it through my lens of being so proud of that one. I feel like I'd rather be so proud of that one, or if I get a few more, whatever it is, even if it's just one, to look back and be so proud of that one. I think I'd rather feel that than not be proud of any of them and have 40 of them. Yeah. And if I didn't go through what I've went through to be so proud for that one, that goes back to why I think I'll be a good coach or mentor or whatever it is, or like be a better person from it. I'm so proud of that. And the statistics, when you look at it, I think it was my 100 and something start. And if you only win one race out of 150 starts, it doesn't seem that successful in the highest of standards. But I think it is, because I never thought I'd even race a Supercross. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can kind of look at it. It just depends on the lens that you want to look at it. It's like, essentially, if you say I was the 150th, if you've lined up 149 times and you haven't won, you probably shouldn't win any. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's probably like, all right, you're just not going to win. Yeah. But then you do it, and it's like, it validates like a whole life of really struggling. And that's what I was saying before, like, your story, dude, to come from Iowa and to, you know, like you said, that McGrath was a cartoon character. Yeah. Like, so many kids, like, they grow up and that was one of the, like, me and Todd would talk about this, like, because Todd's just a frother. Like, he just froths on everything so hard. And he's like, I'm so glad that I didn't grow up in Southern California and I didn't get to go to Glen Helen every day and see Carmichael and just become, like, jaded by it. He's like, I'm so excited. He's like, I'm probably not as good of a racer anymore. But, you know, you look at a kid like Carson Mumford or Ryder DiFrancesco, like, they've just seen all the dopest shit their whole life. And it's like, what's the seal, you know, where do they go from there? Exactly. You know, it's like, and it's the same for you. Like, you come from so far away that it's like, you almost get to appreciate all of the thing.
Whereas I don't think a guy like a Carson Mumford, like I don't think he gets to appreciate exactly what he's got because it's always all been there.
And guys like that, they don't get time to grow. So I had a chance to grow into myself with not having the pressure at 16 to win. If I go win my second 450 Supercross, man, the rest of my career is going to be a struggle because if I don't win, it's never going to be enough.
It's like being that band with like that first hit single.
Yeah, you got to live up to that every time. There's a story that Bradshaw told me. He won the Supercross. I think it was in Japan or something, and Ricky Johnson was on the podium with him, and he said, "You just messed up." And Bradshaw's like, "What? I just won the race." He's like, "Exactly, you just won the race. Now nothing else is going to be good enough for your team, for you, for everything." And Bradshaw has told me that story personally, and it's so true. And the younger guys that you see it so many times, you see it year after year. These kids come in, they've won Loretta Lynn's every year. They've had a factory ride since they were 12. They get 2 years to make it as a pro, and that's it. Maybe 1 year. And if they don't make it, next. Where for me, I actually had time to grow into my first fill-in ride, into the Moto World ride, where I, like I've said before to other people, but I'm one of the only ones that has actually lived every facet of our sport, every stage of our sport. From I couldn't even qualify at one time. I couldn't make the top 20 at a pro national, not even close. Then I'm a top 20 guy. Then I'm a top 15. Then I'm top 10. Then I'm a top 5 guy. And then at one point I've battled for championships. So I've lived all that and gone through that mentally, where these kids don't get to learn that. And I think if the teams just put a little more time in, or let them mature a little bit and not let them turn pro when they're 16, maybe wait until they're 21. Guys, I say right now, guys like, Josh Osby's in the room with us for now, but a guy like him, or good friends with Cameron McAdoo, guys like that have such an opportunity right now because they're a little older. They've had a little bit of time to grow. Yeah. Now if a guy like Osby got a chance on a factory team, like, watch out. Yeah. Because a 16-year-old kid's not going to beat him. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. But when he was 16, he wasn't ready to go pro either. So I just think there's a path that works for some and doesn't for others. There's very few that path works.
That's the problem is you get like a Jet Lawrence though, and then you're like, he could win right now, and then he becomes like the rule, not the exception.
Or James was the rule, right?
Exactly.
Or Ricky was the rule.
And then the industry looks for that guy. The industry's like, we need that next guy. Like we don't care. Like we don't have time for like a fine wine Justin Brayton that takes 20 years to be like,
I get that. Yeah, but
but it's not good for people to look for that and to push for that and to expect that everybody is James or like Jet Lawrence might not be that
to expect Jet to win. That's a bummer for Jet. Yeah. Like, I feel bad for him. I do. Like, for him to be expected to win, the kid just turned 16. Yeah, he's a good rider. Imagine how good he would be at 20. Yeah. And then will somebody wait for him to be that good? Nope. Maybe he will be when he's 16. I'm not saying he won't win races next year. But imagine how good he really could be at 20. And then he races the 250 class for a couple of years. And then he's still got a 10-year 450 career if he wanted it. Yeah. But a lot of these kids I see that come in, I genuinely feel bad for them and their parents, because if they just had 2 or 3 more years, I think they could turn into something really, really good, but they don't have that long. Yeah. And I was super thankful to have some teams that I've been on to have some patience with me.
So what's like the way to do it? Like, do you reckon that, say you were like Josh, you go race some Australian series, like just be a bit of a journeyman at the start of your career, because like Osborne's kind of a dude that has had that like roundabout way to being one of the top dudes,
and he had the guts to figure it out. Like, so he obviously was highly touted amateur factory rider, getting paid 6 figures, and just didn't perform as a pro. Most people are just done.
They get shelved.
He's not that type of guy. He went to Europe and did it a different way. Not a lot of people could do that. I couldn't do that. There's no way I go to Europe and be successful like he's been. And then he comes back, reinvents himself as a champion. But I think, and he would say the same thing as me, like it just took him that long to learn.
Yeah.
It's a skill to learn how to win as well. Like, I think that's where all these overseas stuff, it's helped me learn how to win. And like I was helping McAdoo a little bit last year. He was left with nothing. He's just been kind of a fill-in guy. Oh, what should I do, JB? What should I do? Like, just go race. So a fill-in ride came available for Yariv last year. Yariv called me, hey, who do you think we should get for aus-x? McAdoo. What's he do? He comes in, he wins the race. aus-x last year in Sydney. JB, what should I do now? I'll call Eric Pinard and get you into Paris Supercross. But you're going to have to ride a Honda that literally, I don't know what it's like. You got to wear some random gear. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I just need to be racing. He gets a podium at Paris. He's learning how to develop his skills and to be a better racer.
And not to mention like just the racing, it's like the fact that you're having to travel, you're having to deal with different
learning.
Yeah, it's just like this constant like other variables that you have to figure out how
and
to make
people
work.
are talking about him, right? He's there. He's actually in the press. He's in people's face. And then next, hey, I'll try and get you into Geneva. He rides a bone stock bike in Geneva and wins the race. Guess what they're talking about? They're talking about McAdoo winning this race, and you know, it's people talking about it, and he's learning how to develop as a racer to be a winner. And now all that, then all of a sudden he's a fill-in guy again, and now he's got his chance, which I believe, being a little bit older, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins races at the highest level now. But it took time. It took a guy like him to just keep going. All right, what's next? Like, I know a lot of people in the industry, they're not going to go to Paris and race some random Honda. They're not going to do that. I would have done it.
Yeah.
Like, I would have done it, and I don't have anything else. Okay, what do I need to do? Like, there's a lot of guys that just wouldn't take those steps, and they're just going to sit at a training facility and practice and not get noticed.
Do you think guys are more in love with like the idea of how your career should go? Because like if you don't, like, how many guys have we seen that it's like, if you come out of amateurs, you win a bunch of Lorettas, then you do good your first year, maybe your second year you get an injury, then you're off that team, and then you go to like a second tier team, and it's like, then it's not the picture that they painted for themselves. Totally, so they're like, they're more in love with the idea of being a factory rider than actually being a factory rider.
Totally,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I 100% agree with you there. I think just a lot of the guys just want to pit out of a semi and have that look. I don't care what I'm pitting out of. If I've got a decent motorcycle, let's line up. I'll come in the back of a pickup truck, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the mindset you have to have, because with that factory ride and with that semi, there's pressure that comes with it, and most people can't handle that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say, it's like the biggest misconception as a privateer. Oh, if I just got this factory bike. Nah, mate, you wouldn't do any better.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. And the motorcycles are so good now in stock form. If you can have some good suspension, you can go do well. And if a 15th place guy got offered my ride and my motorcycle, he's not all of a sudden a 5th place guy.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works. And I really believe that, because one, the pressure, two, it's not NASCAR where the car makes up probably 80%, where ours is flipped. We're probably 80% rider, 20% bike. And then once you get to that level, the advantages you have are the technicians and the opportunity to make your bike fit you. Are you going to be good at that? Like, I wasn't at first, but that's the biggest thing you have as a factory rider, is how knowledgeable can you be and how good of a communicator can you be with your team to make that motorcycle fit you.
Yeah.
So if you can't communicate what your bike's doing, I mean, you're not gonna get it the way you want it.
And it's almost worse when you're on a factory team with unlimited resources, because you can get lost in the sauce.
Totally, yeah.
Like, they can give you everything, like shit you've never changed before.
Yeah.
Like, even like, oh, how much torque do you want on your rear axle? Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I tightened it up with a shift.
What mounts do you want on your frame? We have 25 different options.
Yeah. So it's like, it's almost not, you know, like we saw with Medi even, you know, like he was changing so much different stuff. It's like, sometimes that's actually a curse.
Yeah, it can be, for sure. If you don't know what you're kind of getting yourself into and you're not confident in your abilities of what you want, you can definitely get spun out.
And then there's pressure to like give feedback, right?
Yeah.
So you don't even know what feedback you give.
You
And
just want to say something.
Yeah,
right?
you just
it's better. It's better.
Yeah.
Where then you get a little older and wiser, and you're like, I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. But when you're young, you think it's a bad thing because there was something changed. So it should change the way the bike is. So I'm just gonna act like, oh yeah, that seemed a little different over there. So yeah, it was better. And then you just get them going down the wrong road. Like it can be, you can open a big can of worms by going down the bad side of testing for sure. And I've seen it, and honestly, I've been a part of it. But it's how I've learned to be more vocal on what I really want, and then be confident in knowing the direction I'm taking them. Because at the end of the day, like when people complain about their bikes, when riders, like factory riders, complain about their bikes,
they're really complaining about themselves.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like they need to take more responsibility. And if I was a team manager or team owner or anything, I would be huge on that. Like, look, on Tuesday, you wanted this change. So don't go badmouth our motorcycle on Saturday night because it wasn't the right direction, because you led us down that direction. So we're all in it together. Like I can't stand when people badmouth their bikes so much, because you're in it together. Like, try and get it as best you can. If it wasn't good on that night on that certain track, okay, that's fine. But you don't have to make it vocal and how bad your bike is and this is the reason why. Because I think riders need to take more responsibility for the way they've set up their motorcycle.
Dude, Nate Ramsey was the one that I assumed in my naive, like didn't know anything when I went to America, that like if you're on a factory team, you knew what you were talking about as a rider in terms of testing. And I remember like leaving the test track with Nate Dogg and it'd just be like, he has no idea,
clue.
like literally like no idea. Or I'd say something, he's like, you know more about the motorcycle than that dude. Yeah. And that blew my mind. And he said, he's like, dude, there's probably 10 dudes in the world that can actually test a motorcycle and give legitimate feedback. And I was like, dude, you have to be exaggerating. Like you must be so exaggerating that there's 10 dudes. He's like, nah, there's no one. Like people really don't know. Yeah. But
then I also think it's the team's responsibility to relay that message to the rider that it's okay. Yeah. It's totally fine if you don't know what you're talking about. If we put a slick on the rear and you can't even tell, that's okay. Yeah. Or you know what I mean? Like some riders just think they should be good at testing because they're a factory rider. So
that's for sure true.
The team should just say, okay, we've got this guy that doesn't really know. Let's help him through the process. Let's not change a lot of stuff. Yeah. Let's kind of work him through it, and then rather than just expect him to know. And then because sometimes the teams can be like, oh, that guy's terrible at testing, he this and that. Once again, it's just like, no, you're in it together.
Is it like, do a lot of teams try and teach the riders how to test?
Not really.
So you think that's like a bit of an issue? Yeah. Because it wouldn't be that hard to like teach somebody. Because like me and Sleater had this conversation. Like I think it's kind of weird that, but I get why it happens. But like, say you go to factory Honda and you're like, oh, I'm thinking I'm going to sign with the team. They want to give you like the best shit day one. Like this is our sexual chocolate right now. Yeah. Like you're riding the A team. And then it's like winning your first race. Like where do you go from there? Yeah. Like it can only, like it, how much better are they going to make that motorcycle? Like percentage points left or right, better, worse. Whereas it's like, if you go, like that's what Todd did with when he got on the Huskies. They sent him a stock bike. Yeah. And he just rode it for like months. And he wasn't, granted it was motocross, you sort of can't do that on Supercross, but he had a stock bike. And he's like, dude, I love this thing. Yeah. And then he knew the bike. And then he got new forks and a new shock. And then he's like, okay, I really know. Like I can really tell. And he's like, he was stoked because he's like, that just made this thing like way better. And there was like a positive attitude towards that change, and he felt invested in that change. And then, you know, he does all his own clickers and stuff like that. And that's like, then they put an ignition on, then they put a pipe on it. It's like in his head, he's like, dude, this thing just keeps getting better and better. Whereas that's not how it works. It's like literally, here's the stiffest, fastest beast machine that we can give you. Yeah. And it's like, then where do you go?
Yeah. I actually agree with that, what Todd did. I mean, I think it's great to start on a stock motorcycle, whether it's just in motocross or whatever. When I found out I was going to ride for the factory team this year, it was going to be some logistical, like it was going to be tough to get a motorcycle in North Carolina. And I wanted to stay there. We had some stuff going on with family and stuff, so I wanted to stay there. It was like another 3 weeks. And then I was flying to California to test the factory bike. So I went and bought the 2020s just came out, I went and bought a motorcycle off the showroom floor of a shop to ride it in stock form just to see.
Yeah.
And then I put Supercross suspension on it and some handlebars and a pipe, and I motoed that thing for 2.5 weeks. And it was crazy. Like, for one, I was nervous as heck going to the track. The first day I was going to ride a stock bike. I hadn't ridden a stock bike in so long. And
isn't that crazy?
So
that,
good.
Like, you're paid to be a representative of Honda.
Yeah.
And it's like what they're selling is the stock bike.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even riding what they're selling.
Yeah.
But like, you should have that experience.
Totally, yeah.
You're a salesman.
Yeah. And now that I have, like, I can't believe how good stock bikes are.
Yeah.
Like, it blows my mind how good that thing was. I was telling Brent, my mechanic, one day after we were riding, I was riding on Supercross, stock suspension, stock ignition, stock.
So you rode stock suspension on Supercross?
Supercross suspension.
Oh, okay.
But everything else was stock except handlebars. And I mean, stock clamps, just everything, the stock linkage, all of it. And it was awesome. Like, it was, of course, my factory bike is better, but you can take that motorcycle, and my exact words were, I could take this to Anaheim and do well on it right now. And it's wild. We live in a really cool time of how good the motorcycles are. It's not like it used to be where you have to be on works equipment or a factory bike to do well.
Yeah.
Nah. Like, Eli Tomac could take a stock motorcycle with some suspension on it and do really, really well.
Yeah.
And just like I said earlier, the 15th place guy cannot get on a factory motorcycle and go do what Eli's going to do. It's not that way.
Are you better in your testing process now with your Honda because you spent those 2.5 weeks on a stock bike?
I don't know if I could say I'm better. I mean, we definitely started more of just a base platform. And because typically, you know, guys will cut the subframe and do a different linkage and then run some different offset clamps. I wanted to see what the bike was like just in stock trim, as far as just the chassis and how that felt. So we pretty much started with that when I started on the factory bike. I didn't start with a stock engine, but as far as the chassis parts and stuff, we started pretty much stock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think that then helped? Like, does that help the process to sort of go, instead of just jumping straight to like, here's the thing with all the fruit on it, we can change all these individual pieces, as opposed to like, here it is stock and we can just slowly add things to it.
And then you grow with the team and the bike, because then you can visually see, yep, this is better, or on the stopwatch, yep, that was better, rather than just start out and be like, all right, well, so what'd you guys have on the rear of that? Or, hey, what'd we start with here? Well, let's go to this because we think this might be better. So yeah, it just gives you a solid base platform to start on.
Yeah.
And I think it helps everybody, because then you can grow with the bike and you can grow with the team, and the way you relay a message to the team, every rider relays a message different.
Yeah.
Different wording for it. So I think it helps everybody.
It's crazy to think that you're on the factory, like it's like just been this crazy slow grind to now. It's like, I know you've been on factory Honda before, but it's like, you know, 3-time Aussie champ, you had your best season ever last year, and now it's like 2020 is going to be on like the factory team.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Even the number 2020, it's like, oh, you know, back in Iowa, 2020, bro, you're going to be, you and Roxon are going to be like the two dudes on a factory Honda.
Yeah, arguably the pinnacle of the sport at 35 years old, maybe the oldest to ever sign a factory contract. I don't know for sure, but I'm proud of that. Like, I think it's cool when people talk about my age. I think it's just motivation. We were talking about last night how young Osby and Jay Wilson are. I'm like, man, they just seem like kids, you know?
Yeah.
And if they wanted to, they've got another 10 or 12 years to go. And yeah, it's just crazy to think that you can, or for me at this age, to, I guess, still be doing what I'm doing, because we're taught different in our industry and our sport, that when you're 30, you are ancient. Like, you need to get out. You're done. And now to be the oldest to ever win a race, win a Supercross, now be on factory Honda at age 35 and doing it a different way. I don't know if factory Honda would sign a guy that says, hey, I'm still going to Australia. I still want to do a race or two in Europe, and I'm doing Supercross only for factory Honda. Like, would anyone say that 10 years ago?
Nah.
No way. So I feel like it's pretty cool to to know that it's working for me, but it's also working for a team like Honda that says, look, you're our salesperson globally, and you winning Australia means a lot to us. You winning the Geneva Supercross means a lot to us. It means the most to us if you win over here, but you know, in their mind, they've kind of got Kenny for that.
Yeah.
And so if I can go win a race or two, awesome. If I can help Kenny along the way achieve his goals and I achieve mine at the same time, and I've won Australia again, and I'm in Europe on a Honda, like it all makes a lot of sense, I think.
I just think it's funny too that, like you said, you know, like you're a guy that weren't really making any waves. You weren't doing any, like, you're not a loud, outspoken guy. You're not in everyone's face media-wise. Like, you probably were like the dude that flew under the radar for just the longest time.
Yeah.
And now, really, if you look at the big picture of like what you've achieved over the last few years, the way that you've structured your deals, now that you're on factory Honda, like you're like, it's like a super influential dude. Like, people are going to be trying to be like you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas like in 2012, like no one was trying to be like Justin Brayton. And it's not a knock. It's just the way, it's like you said, it's like this slow build to this thing now. And all of a sudden it's like, fuck, Brayton's really like figured it out, and I kind of want to do what he's doing. Yeah.
And I get that a lot. I've gotten a lot of phone calls from riders and agents, and hey, so how'd you do this, or who'd you call? And I mentioned it to you another time, but it just I think we were talking about it last night. I think I just timed it perfect with Honda, because you have to have a manufacturer on board to support this sort of program. So if a guy like, just say Dean Wilson, wanted to do the exact same thing I'm doing, I don't know if Husky is willing to spend the dollars to make it happen over here. I got super lucky with Yariv and just global Honda in 2016. They were just on this mission to kind of win everything globally, and even Australia meant a lot to them to win this series. And no knock to the Australian series, but most of the time they only care about the American Supercross series. That's it. Where Honda was different at that time. They're like, we want to win everything. Yep, man, that means a lot to us to go win Australia. And this year, for the last round in Marvel Stadium, literally the boss of Honda is coming to an Australian Supercross to watch. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, that's awesome. And so, yeah, you just have to have the manufacturer. It has to be the right timing. Not everyone can just say, or like Barsha. If Barsha wanted to do this program next year, it's really, really difficult because the Yamaha team's on different gear.
I don't know now, though, because you've done it. Like, it might have been difficult for you because you were the first dude to do it.
Yeah.
But now I think the cell, like, it's still hard to do. But, like, if it was Barsha that was trying to do it and you'd never done it before, then it's like a cell.
Yeah,
but now, like, it's proof of concept, bro.
Yeah, it
like,
actually works.
It worked. Yeah. It worked well.
Yeah. You'd have to have all your sponsors and a manufacturer on board.
Yeah.
Which I see what you're saying. Like, now Honda has done it. Why wouldn't Yamaha do it?
And
because it works.
The thing is too is, like, if you didn't win last year, then it, like, the program's half validated.
Yeah.
But because you had your best season ever, and everyone has to go like, what happened here?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, because that was my thing. Like, when you started coming over and you were winning these races, I was like, there's nothing better than gate drops. Like, there's no, and I know it's not the best series. The tracks aren't always the best. The guys here wouldn't go and win over there, but it's like the level's good. Like, Luke, I believe Luke
really
Clout could go to a Supercross on his exact 450 race bike, and he could put it in the top 10. I think on a good night.
Yeah, he would do well. Yeah, and obviously proved where he is. Medi's one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And then the tracks is the biggest thing, right? Like, so for me to separate myself on these tracks, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think it's made me a better rider to try. Because
you've got to find every 10th.
I've got to find every 10th. Yeah. I mean, Brisbane indoor, for me to be, I think I was over half a second. Yeah, but I was over half a second faster.
Yeah, that is crazy.
In practice and in the mains, and that was just, I call it detailing the track. Like, every little detail matters. This turn down here and that little rut that you're going to grab here, it all matters. So I think that's made me a better rider to Because the difference between me and Eli Tomac in the States or Ken Roxon is a few tenths.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's 3 seconds. So if I gain 3 or 4 tenths a lap over 20 minutes, like
you're there.
How many more seconds does that put me up? You know, that helps me win Daytona.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's helped me the most. And then you talk about being in a vulnerable state. I signed with Factory Honda, and then I still want to come over here. If I come over here and get 4th, imagine what that does, not only to me, but to like sponsors so that puts me in that state of, like we talked about James and stuff earlier, like you have to, like you do not have a choice. But in my mind, I kind of do now, because I'm like, it's not going to define me even if I'm on a Factory Honda bike and I've signed with that team. It doesn't define me if I get 3rd in an Australian Supercross. I don't want to,
because you know
that
the guys are good too, though.
Yeah.
Like you.
But I'm more saying the outside perspective.
Yeah.
What do the people in the States think about me?
Yeah.
So, but then it's also, I realize that, and it's why I started training in June. I realize what it does for guys like Clout or Medi or Reardon or these other guys, like, oh, he's on a Factory Honda now. Watch this. I'm going to beat him. If I could just beat him 1 time, if I could just beat him 2 times, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I can just be faster than him in 1 practice.
Yeah.
So from the time the green flag flies, the very first practice, the very first lap, I know it's go time for me. And I love that, though. Like, I love that feeling. I love that pressure. So I kind of thrive on that.
Well, that's why there's definitely an argument of people being like, whoa, we get too many Americans over here, it's taken away from the Australian dudes. But like, exactly
That's
what
stupid.
you just said is why we should have the best dudes here. Because dude, like Cloudy, I'm friggin' super proud of that kid. Like, he's come a long way in the last few years. Like, from even last year to now, like, he has made huge improvements, like massive leaps. And it's like, it's because that. It's like, dude, Brayton's on a Factory Honda. He won a race in America last year. If I can beat this dude, like, I can be that guy. Like, that, it's sort of, it raises the ceiling, but it also raises the intensity to, like, achieve it. When you're sort of just here racing around in Australia, and it's like you're the king of Pooh Castle. Yeah. If there's no, like, what's the yardstick, you know? But it's like a guy like you, and I think that at the start, maybe it wasn't even like you legitimized the series. You were just
maybe not the first year.
I don't think so. Like, I didn't think like, oh damn, Brayton's coming, man. Like, this is gonna make the series what it is. But I think over time, with what you've achieved here, and then what you achieved in America, now it's like this is really legitimate, because I think that this series has made you better. For sure. And I think it's made our guys better. And it's like a rising tide floats all boats in a sense, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I just think that guys like you are so necessary to raise up everything. And now you look at, like, could you imagine racing at Marvel Stadium the first year that you were here, the first gate drop that you did? Like, that's a short time, dude. It is, a really short time to now have, like, this is going to be one of the biggest Supercross races in the world. In Melbourne. Yeah, it's super cool, and to grow along with it has been really cool. And then also, if it was just like, let's just say I wasn't here, maybe not many people pay attention to Luke or Dan or Brett, because it's like they don't know how good they actually are. Where now when you look on paper and Cloudy's 3 tenths or 4 tenths off of me, it's like you can armchair race a bit, You can armchair race a little bit, and the people at home, teams and fans and everything, can say, man, like, those guys are legit because Justin did X, Y, and Z over here. Yeah. So where would that put them? And then also, like you said, gives them a measuring stick for like Cloudy, who still has aspirations to come to America. Like, man, if I can just get that little closer or beat him or whatever it is, like, and then the whole thing of Aussies not liking Americans come over, like we don't complain that Chad came over. Yeah, we don't complain that Ken's over there. Yeah, we, like the list goes on and on and on. Yeah, it only raises everybody's level, and I think the Australian fans and riders should be stoked. Yeah, maybe they don't win the race or win the championship, but hey, the next year, work harder, try harder. Like, and now the 250 class over here
it's so fun to watch. It's so competitive right now.
Yeah, dude.
And a guy who's leading the championship, Aaron Tanti, like, I would have never guessed that. He might have not have even guessed that. But how stoked is he right now? He's got the red plate going into round 3. And yeah, the championship's close, but he can legitimately say that he's raced with these guys that have been on the podium in America.
Yeah.
Maybe it gives him new hope or new aspirations to like, hey, I want to go over there. You know, maybe I'm better than I think I am, or maybe these guys aren't as good as I thought they were. So I think it only helps everybody.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
Is it crazy to watch the way that the AME boys have done the whole aus-x Open in Sydney and then New Zealand and now New Zealand and Melbourne? Like, it must be pretty cool from your perspective as a rider. And I know like how hard they work to make, like you said last night, they make you feel like you're one of the best dudes in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, the way they go about it from top to bottom is first class. They're genuinely, truly like fans of the sport, and they ride. Like, Bailey will just be motoing on a Saturday or Sunday because he loves it, and so they just get it. They get the sport. They're trying to grow it. I mean, I probably only know 1% of what really goes on, but it is very, very difficult to put these events on.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of a lot of them around the world, and it's not easy. So for them to not only financially, but just the time it takes to do these events, it's awesome. And I just give them huge props. And now, like you said, not only New Zealand, but the one in Marvel, it's one of the biggest races in the world, and it's here in Australia. So that's pretty cool. It's been cool to be a part of it. They have included me, even though I do the series, they include me in on, you know, things, media stuff for those events, which they don't really have to. But I think it's cool that they do. And Sando and Bailey have really, they've grown to be friends like of mine now. Like I would call them a friend, and it's really cool to see their passion for it, and just how much they genuinely care about how the whole event and the riders. It's pretty impressive.
The media stuff, where are you at with the media side of things these days? Like, do you like how the media works in motocross? Do you look at other sports and wish that it was more like that? Because obviously, like, I'm in a weird spot with it. I'm like got 1 foot in but 1 foot out. Like, I don't really have to report on anything. I don't really have to. Yeah. Like, I'm not like Wygant or Mathers, but I'm sort of still talking about it and people still listen. So it's like, for me, it's interesting. I'm like, I wonder what people like you even think of the media and where it should go. Is it good? Is it bad? Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I go in waves. It used to be my least favorite thing, to be honest. Like, I love riding, I love racing, and that's what I want to do. That's what I signed up to do. That's what I did as a young kid. Now to go sign autographs and to live up to be a certain person was really difficult for me at first. Now that I've gotten older, I kind of embrace it. I enjoy things like this. I enjoy tonight I'm doing a meet and greet at a car dealership, and Saturday I'm having dinner with some executives that are big fans and potentially want to be in the sport. Like, so media stuff like that I love, where 5 years ago I didn't. Straight up, I just did not like it. I wouldn't want to spend the time to do it because I felt like I had to just be in this mindset of training and riding, and that's what I want to do. I don't care about the other stuff.
So you had like negative thoughts towards
a little bit, yeah. Where now I get the whole picture. I get the whole, where you kind of have to make everybody happy. Yeah. And these guys that, like, they want me to come there and meet some employees, and they want me to meet, you know, certain people, and these guys actually really want to go have dinner with me, and I really embrace that now. Like, I love that side of it, and I think it's what separated me and helped my career be longer is my relationships. It's why I'm on Factory Honda. It's just straight up relationships. A little bit of results, but I think it's more of the relationship that I've built. Answering your question about me, like social media, I go back and forth on that because, for one, I hate going into restaurants and seeing everyone on their phone. Yeah. When there's 4 people at dinner, 6 people at dinner, and everyone's just on their phones. I hate that.
That's what was cool. I thought about that last night because I rode away and I like took my phone out of my pocket and I had like 50 messages.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, we act like no one looked at their phone last night.
And it's awesome.
Which is rare though, right?
It's super rare. But then on the other side of it, like the social media thing, honestly, I wish I had someone just with me all the time that just videoed what I was doing and posted it for me.
Yeah.
But then it's not that genuine, but at least people get to see what I'm doing. And I get on my wife on it about it all the time. Like, she loves social media and posts what the kids are doing and posts. Like, I love it after it's done. Like, I love seeing those videos and stuff. But in the middle of it, I'm like, babe, we're at the park. Yeah. We're at the beach with the kids. Like, let's just enjoy this. Like, put your phone away.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult.
Because you're right. Like, after it's done,
it's cool to have those memories.
Like, oh man, like you can sit on the couch and watch the kids, and you're like, this is awesome. It's really cool. That was so cool to see how happy they were.
Yeah. So I go back and forth on it all the time. And I think it'd be really cool for people to see my whole trip to Australia, because there's a lot of Americans and fans that don't really know what goes on. I'd love to video this whole trip one year and like put it out there on social media.
Yeah.
Then again, it takes a lot of work and you're vulnerable because you've got a camera in your face all the time. So yeah, I really do go back and forth. I think it's a great time to follow people though, and to be a fan of just anybody or any sport. It's really cool because you get an inside look. So yeah, I'm 50-50 on it. I want to live my life and be able to be a good dad and a good husband. And I feel like having my phone out all the time deters me from doing that. Yeah. So it's almost like you have to have time like detached from it. So there's tons of studies, going on right now, like how many hour like screen time, and like if we looked at our screen time after every day, it's an ugly number. Mine was ugly yesterday, I can tell you that. It's an ugly number. But then again, it's like you do everything on your phone. So that's the hard part too, is I'll just be checking emails, or like there'll be some important stuff going on and if I'm sitting in a chair, 20 feet away from my wife, she might just think I'm on Instagram scrolling. Yeah. Or vice versa. Like I might just think she's been on Instagram for an hour, but she might be doing something really important. Yeah. Or same when you see people at dinner, it's like you can do everything on your phone. So you might have just some businessman might have closed $1 million deal on their phone and you thought they were on Instagram. Yeah, dude. So it's like, it's that shit happens really to me difficult. Daily. Like that's one of my things with my girlfriend. Like she'll be like, get off your phone. I'm like, I'm literally emailing Red Bull right now. Exactly. Like the boss. And it's like, so tough though, huh? You instantly think like, get off your phone. You're on Instagram or you're on Twitter. Or you're like, who cares about what those other people are doing? You're like, no, I'm actually just got a new sponsor for the show, or you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a tough thing to kind of walk. But do you like how the sport's covered though? Yeah, I think it's getting better. I think guys like you are awesome for it. I think Mathis is great for the sport. Love him or hate him. I like him. I think it's awesome. We need a guy like that guy. Straight shooter. We were talking about that last night. He's just a good batter and different. I think he's a straight shooter, and the people that don't like him probably don't like to hear the truth about them. So yeah, I think he's great for the sport. I like Weege. Weege is one of my favorite guys. So yeah, and then with the whole MotoSpy stuff, like that's awesome. Yeah, dude. It's so cool to see I live it. I'm in it. Yeah. But for guys like even my friends in Iowa to see stuff that other guys are doing, or see what I've been doing, or see what happened on a Tuesday afternoon at the test track, like I think that's really cool. It's a good time to be alive. And remember back in the day, Cycle News or a magazine was the only way you could see really who won the race. So yeah, it's a cool time to be a fan of the sport, to be in the sport, but it's also the sponsors and teams. It's more work as a rider. There's more responsibility placed on the riders and teams now more than ever, and I think that's why some of these guys are just done early and so it's because you have to do everything right. Like you can't only get the results now. Yeah. Because there's 10 guys that are like me in the sport. We could list 10 that are kind of in that same. Look, you've got the big 4 or whatever. Yeah. And then you've got the next group of 6 or 8 or maybe 10 of us. So how do you separate yourself to get that factory Honda ride over 4 other guys who might have got the same results or going to get the same results as you on the track? How do you separate yourself? So it's a tough time right now, but it's also a good time if you know ways to build relationships and separate yourself from that crowd.
Do you reckon that like, I love what Ando's got going on with the whole Team Fried thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think that people, like guys like him doing that sort of stuff, pushes the sport forward in like pretty big leaps and bounds? Because like, in the same way that like you're kind of pushing the boundaries with Honda, like this isn't a generic thing for them. This is like a new age deal that you've got, and what Ando's doing is like new age as well.
Yeah.
Like, there seems like there's something going on at the moment where things are changing, and do you think it's like it's just out of necessity, like the sport needed to change, and maybe like Feld or whoever isn't going to change the schedule, they're not going to change the formats, they're not going to change this and that, so it's like you guys are like finding your own ways to like impact the sport in the way that you wish that it would be?
Yeah, I don't know for sure if it's like pushing the sport, but it definitely, the fan interaction is just next level right now with social media. I mean, I don't follow Jason's stuff super close, but like Dino, like he's awesome on social media. It's just, it's awesome. And I know the whole Team Fried thing, like when they went to Europe, like that's so awesome for
insane,
the fans and to see the interaction. And that's a lot of work for Jason, probably a lot of money, a lot of work. So it's cool that he's doing that. I just think it brings the fans closer to us. Yeah. And that's never bad. Like, I think that's a total positive.
What sports do you follow that you think do that well? Do you follow much other stuff?
I follow a lot of sports, but at a pretty big distance.
So you're not like into it.
No, not really. Since we've had kids, honestly, like I used to be a big football fan, baseball, basketball. I'd watch NASCAR every Sunday. Man, I used to look forward to getting home on a Sunday and turning NASCAR on and taking a nap on the couch and then watching the last 50 laps or whatever. Yeah, now we can't do that. Like the TV is pretty much on cartoons 24/7, and it's so hard to follow any sport because for one, I've got to be in tune with my sport. Yeah. And then I'm trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, still want to be a good friend, and the day's gone. Yeah. You know? And I'd rather spend my time doing those things than following a sport closely. But I know enough about every sport, not every sport, because like rugby and stuff like that here, like I don't know anything about.
But your main sort of stuff back there.
Main stuff, I could definitely have a conversation about all of it and have some knowledge about all of it. Yeah. But to follow it day in and day out is, it's not me right now. Yeah,
that's fair. Does that, like with your parents splitting up when you were young, has that played on your mind like when you're a parent?
For sure, yeah. 100%. Absolutely. And yeah, it weighs on me all the time, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that I spend the time. Like it's a really hard balance. I gotta admit, it's the hardest thing I do every day, is to try and be the best at something at the highest level. I want to I want to win races in Supercross next year as a 35-year-old, but also am a dad of 2. I'm also a husband, and it's really, really hard to find that, because I know what some of the other guys are doing. I know what it's like to be single and just train, ride, but also know the downside of that. I know the mental fatigue. I know all that. So I'm balancing it better than ever, but it's also a very difficult task to, because I want to take my kids to school. Like I want to be there for everything they do, you know? Yeah. But my wife is really good at helping with that. Like she handles everything with the kids. Like it's like she's a godsend. Like it's been awesome, but I also don't want her to, right? I want her to do her own thing too, and for me to spend time with the kids and know that I'm providing for them. Like when I leave for a weekend, or sometimes I have to leave for a couple weeks, it's only benefiting them as well as me.
But that's hard. Like, they don't understand that, right?
They don't understand it. No.
Because that's just relationships in general, I think. Like, when you're, because even for me, like, I put so much time into this thing, and it's not only time physically of me, like, say, being in the studio or being away on trips, or like the physical time, but it's like my headspace is like constantly in work. Like, I was fucking making notes at midnight last night. Like, I sleep pretty good, couldn't sleep last night, so I got my phone out and I'm like just trying to write down all this, and it's all about work, and that's definitely hard. Like, I feel guilty to constantly put that much time, mental equity into it, but then at the same time I'm thinking like, well, this is like good for everybody. Like, if this is successful and this does well, then we all do well. And it's not just my relationship, it's like my family, it's like Mick, it's like, you know, you just feel like, I get that I'm putting so much time into this, but you feel like it's for this big picture, but you sort of do have to balance that, otherwise otherwise the family goes by the wayside. So like the people that you're doing it for, they don't get any of the rewards out of it.
And it's hard to find a good spouse to understand that. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't ever find that passion either. And that's what I try to teach my kids is it's absolute. If I could pick, and I've told people this before, but if I could pick anything to do tomorrow morning, and if I've got $1 billion in the bank, I could pick anything. I'd want to go ride motorcycles with my buddies. Pretty sick. Like, I really would. And so to have that passion for something and to be able to live that out, it's something that I want to instill in my kids. It's something me and my wife talk about all the time. And to know, like, I'm teaching them through it. So if I'm gone for a couple weeks, or if I bring a trophy home, like, that's all my daughter wants now. Like, every time I leave, I have to bring a trophy home.
That's so sick. Well, it's cool she was on like the podium even. She bought you the trophy.
That was super cool. Yeah.
What did that feel like?
That was awesome. It's so funny because every time, like, across the finish line there, and my wife wasn't able to be there because she was pretty sick, so her and my son weren't there. My friend Ford Dale brought my daughter down, and first thing I thought of was like, oh, I want to bring Parker down. Like, it wasn't how stoked I was to win the race. I want Parker to come down and like be able to hold the trophy with me, or just see her face, like, and she's like, Daddy, you won the race. Like, there's no feeling like that. I'm telling you, it's such a cool feeling. And I hope that one day, and it's cool because I'm still doing it, right? Like, at 35, if I was done when I was 30, they would have never seen me race a motorcycle race ever. So it's cool to still be doing it and at a high level. And, but yeah, that's definitely a tough balance but you have to find it, right? Like, I'm a miserable person to be around if I'm not chasing goals, and like, if I'm just home 24/7 and helping with the kids, like, my wife wouldn't want to be with me. You know, like, she's so happy that I'm living out my passion, and she gets to raise our 2 kids and go along on this journey with me. Honestly, it's a dream. We wake up daily, and for some reason this trip has really hit home this year. I don't know if it's because who knows when is our last. You know, my daughter will be in school next year, so I don't know if we could come back or not, but
she doesn't need to go to school. So good. She can figure it. The first couple of years, you can figure it out.
But 10, there's 11, just 12. So much gratitude right now this year of just how, like, we're just so thankful. I mean, we're staying on the beach in Australia, winning races at a high level, on arguably the best team in the world, Factory Honda in America. We've got so many good friends. Like, it's just, you're almost just waiting for it to be stripped from you, right? So you want to, it's like the highs never last forever and the lows never last forever. When you're on the highs, like, sometimes you don't enjoy them enough, or sometimes you enjoy them way too much, and then you don't know what to do in the lows. So in the lows, we just kind of accept it, and like, we know it'll get better. But now in the highs, it's not like we're jumping up and down high-fiving, but we just feel so much gratitude towards just our lives and what we're going through, and it's a special time right now.
That's one of the things where I feel like gratitude is the thing, like, that's the state that you should be in. Like, when shit's going good, it's not really, you don't really want to be celebrating. Like celebrating isn't the state to exist in.
Yeah.
Like when you're winning, say you're winning every weekend, like that's not the thing you should be striving for, because I've been feeling pretty grateful for a lot of stuff lately, and I've been actively trying to chase that feeling of gratitude. Like when I have, like even just yesterday I was having like, or the day before, like Monday I had like a pretty shit day. Yeah. And I was like bummed on myself because it was very hard to see the forest for the trees, even though you know what's there. Like, I was looking at the stats for the show for the month, and it's been one of our best months ever. And it was like, that should be like, I should be grateful for that. I should be like, I was super pumped that you were coming on the show this week. Like, it was a sick week. Yet Monday I just felt like dog shit. Just in it, and I'm just like, fuck, bro. Like, you should be thankful. And then it's like, when you do come, like, you know, getting dressed today, like I was like pumped. I'm like, today's gonna be a great day. Like, I was thankful for it, but it's like, that's the state you need to be in. But like, it's really, it's hard to really like force yourself into that state, because you're always striving for better, right? But and what's a bad day? Like you said, you had a bad day. Like me and Jay Wilson went to visit Children's Hospital in Brisbane the day before the race. A few weeks ago. Talk about a bad day. That's a bad day. You know, like that's, so you leave there feeling so much sadness, but then so much gratitude for what you have, for what I have. Yeah. And so it's all relative, right? And when I'm having a bad day, I'm just like, mate, just look in the mirror. What is bad? Like, what's bad? Yeah. Like, what's really bad? You've got it okay. You know, that's you've got it all right. That's the weird thing though, is like nothing was bad. It was just a feeling. That's like, where Instagram and stuff is so bad now too. Yeah. Everybody's life looks amazing. Yeah. Like I can portray on Instagram anything. Like I can portray that I'm flying private jets every weekend over here, or flying on helicopters, or last year I could have portrayed that, but instead my wife's sick in the hospital with pneumonia, and I've got bronchitis, and the kids got the flu. But I could have done a post and been totally different. Yeah. So that's what's tough, is we always feel like the next person has it a little bit better. Yeah. But then when you can portray on your show, or I can talk to people about the relatability that we have to people in the lows, or what is kind of really going on. Yeah. That's where people, I think, gravitate towards you, or towards the people on Instagram that are just real. Yeah. But for sure, in the dark times at night, you're scrolling like, man, this guy's doing this and this. Like, it can be tough. Yeah. For sure. I think that there's just like everything, like if you're the kind of person that can work for yourself or be a racer, or like, it's such a double-edged sword, because like that drive, like the drive that I have to do well in my life feels like such a fucking burden. Or like I'm over it. Like, I'm like, dude, it's so, like you just wish that you could be happier with not getting up. Like right now I can't train jiu-jitsu. I've been sick, and like my schedule's just gnarly, and I'm like so hard on myself. And I tell myself like, it's all right, you've worked super hard, you won 2 national titles this year, like you're working on your business, it's not like you're being lazy. But like that feeling, like deep inside, you're just like so angry at yourself for like not being able to do the things. Like it's just that drive is just no matter where you're at in your journey, that drive makes you feel like you're not achieving anything. Totally. Even when you are. And it's like that's a real bitch to deal with. It's a tough spot for sure. But I always go back to like, I'm a huge believer in everything happens for a reason. Everything that's happened up until now, even the bad things like missing a full year due to a broken leg, or like I've had some crazy stuff happen. We all have. Every single one of them came out way better on the back end every single time. So why would it change now? So like if I get injured or I get sick or something now, I just automatically go to, okay, it's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be focusing on something else right now, whether it's mindset or reading or taking my kids to the park, or like there's always stuff you can do to make yourself better in those situations. Like just being at jiu-jitsu, that's just one facet of your life, I believe. Yeah. So what could make me a better person, or what could make me better even as a fighter, not just being on the mat, or not, okay, I'm going to read this book about positivity, or I'm going to
do this with my girlfriend, and like I just think there's so much emotional stuff that you could do, you know, like outside of just the physical. Like we're men, I want to do that 100-mile bike ride, and I want to go do these 30-lap motos, and I want to, you know, but that is only going to go so far.
Yeah.
If I can have a calm mind on the starting gate at Anaheim 1, that'll go way further than if I've done 30 lappers or not.
Yeah.
So how am I going to achieve that? By doing some mindset stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So I used to be the same way, but now I'm just like, I try and gravitate towards, okay, this gives me an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z different that normally I wouldn't, because normally I'd be at the track.
Yeah.
And normally I'd be on the bicycle. But since I can't today, since I've got a little injury, or since I am sick, now I'm going to focus on this different part of my life and make that a little bit better. So that's kind of my mindset when stuff like that happens.
What was the first book that you read that got you into reading? Because everyone's got a book, I think, especially if you start reading like sort of later on, that is like, damn, I think I should read now. It's
a self-coaching book. I actually have it with me in my backpack. I carry it with me everywhere. It's kind of what started to make me aware of kind of like my childhood reflexes and just mindset stuff about anxiety and how anxiety and depression are linked. And I just like to pick it up every now and again and read a few pages. It's just self-coaching book. I honestly can't remember the exact.
We'll post it. I'll get it off you and post it.
I have it with me. So, and then I love anything where I can learn different mindset stuff. I always travel with 2 books, just in case one isn't kind of like I'm not feeling that one on a flight, so I read the other one. And they're usually 2 kind of different types, because a lot of the mindset training too that I was doing early on, like you only have, I always say, you only have so many matches to burn in a day. So after I've burnt, like if you have 10 matches to burn, and I've burnt 4 on training, and I've burnt 3 on my relationships, and I've burnt a couple on being a dad, like I don't really have the mental space to try and dig into a book about mindset or
something deep and heavy.
You kind of have to be in the proper headspace for it, and then too much of it stresses me out, because then I overthink it. So there's like such a fine balance, but when I am ready for it, I always have it with me, and then I can absorb it, and I might just do that once every 2 weeks. It might be enough. So that was the first one. That was 2010 when I really started to kind of read books. And I don't read a lot, but there is, you know, people say, oh, I don't have time for it. Well, 10 minutes at night before you go to bed, you could learn so much stuff.
I've really started making like my morning routine, like, it's, you know, what's funny, dude, I was thinking last night, and it like might sound a little bit arrogant in a way, but I think it's like important for people to hear. Like my life is changing now because of the podcast. But it's not changing because of people paying attention to me and all these people listening and I'm making more money. Like that's not what's changing. What's changing is like my level of discipline and my work ethic and my appreciation for the people around me that help make things possible. Like I think I'm getting to be a better person because of all of the things that it takes to like make this happen. And in the part, like, so now I'm sort of at the point where it's like I can't even go to training. Like my days are so full that I can't go to training. So I'm going to have to start getting up at 5, being at training at 5 in the morning. Which like I was adverse to like that. I didn't want to do that. And then it's like, so then you become this guy that starts training at 5 a.m. till 6 a.m. and then you're going out and you're fucking choking people for an hour, and then you get and you have a shower, then you get a coffee, then you read for 20 minutes. And it's like, you sort of watch yourself change, and you're like, damn, you're starting to look like a person that people would talk about in like a motivational video. But it's like that's not what it is. That's like a pure requirement now. Like the ball started rolling, and this is what it requires to like, because I want to keep training. I do want to still read for 20 minutes a day in the morning. Like that's my first thing I want to do. I do want to do more podcasts than I've done. I do want to put effort into editing. Like You want to do these things. So it's like you all of a sudden your life starts to look like what a cliche successful person is. But it's like, it's almost reverse engineered to the way that you would think. And I don't know whether it sounds arrogant to say that, but it's
Not
like,
at all, no.
I want people to understand that it's like what I've now started to see as success is only work and just prioritizing. And then like when something happens where you're like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym now. Well, you have to get up like super early, and like it fucking sucks. Yeah. But you're gonna have to just be a savage.
That's so worth it when you're done. Yeah, it feels so good.
And like now I look at people like Jared Merrill from J-Star, and I'd look at him and I would be like, he's successful because he gets up at 5 and works out crazy, and then he does this, and it's like no, like. All of that stuff happened because he was chasing success. Like that was his pursuit. Like it wasn't success that made that stuff happen. Like that's just what he was doing. But on the outside in, that's what it looks like. And you're like, people will go like, oh, well, I'm just not the kind of guy that's going to get up at 5 a.m. And you know, like people frame it so differently. But now, and then hanging out with guys like yourself and the guests that you talk to, it's like, that's what this like success is derived from. Like it's not, you don't just wake up and do that shit. It's like
an ingredient for sure of success.
And it's, I don't know, that's been something I've been like thinking a lot about lately. And it's like, fuck man, like this has just been right in front of me for a long time. It's just I didn't get out of my own way enough to like actually do it, and I didn't put the work in. I didn't want it bad enough. Like you have to be super honest with yourself about why you're not whatever your version of successful is, right?
You just hit on a key thing of being looking yourself in the mirror and being honest with yourself. Like that's a huge part of it, right? And if you're going to make all these excuses of I don't want to do this or don't want to do that, and a lot of it goes back to what you said of being a factory rider. That's the same in every business. Or you want to be a successful businessman and fly around in a private jet. Well, guess what it takes to get there? A lot of people wouldn't want to do it. Yeah. And the ingredients to be a successful person or an athlete, it's not all roses. It's a tough deal, but it all pays off. And we were talking this morning about parenting. There's not one parent that says how easy it was or like it's the same thing. It is tough, but it's so good. It's so fun. Same with business success or racing success. The process it's fun, but it's really, really hard. Yeah. And if you embrace that pain, or if you embrace that kind of suffer, that's when I think you really start to come out as being successful or whatever you kind of equate success to be. All of us equate it to be something different. And I think it's cool when you really look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is what it's going to take and I'm willing to do it. And then you just get in the midst of it and then you're doing it, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm starting to be successful. Like I just won a race, or I just did this, or now I am going for my 4th Australian championship. Like that's crazy. It all just seemed like it's happened, but it took decisions. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of perseverance through injuries and sickness, and it wasn't easy, that's for sure. But on the back end of it, it's always so worth it. Well, man, we're just about done 3 hours. Oh, wow. And I appreciate every single minute of it. I really enjoyed you coming on, and I'm super glad just on a personal level that like we've connected now to where I can talk to you like this, I think you're awesome. You're a valuable asset to anybody that would listen to you. And if your goal at some point was to be like Nate Dogg, you've definitely achieved that goal. So I think appreciate it. On that level of things, you should be super proud of yourself and the dude that you are and the family that you've created and the vibe that you give people when you interact with them. Awesome. Thanks, man. And we can do this again whenever you want. Absolutely, yeah. Let's do it. Sweet. Thanks, cool. Bro. Thank you. Awesome, dude. Thanks so much, man. Absolutely.